Welcome to another exciting episode of the Million Dollar Peddlers. I'm Paperboy, and welcome to the Hump Day Happy Hour Salute. Today I had some Drambuie because my better half, Mr. Magazine, isn't here tonight. I'll explain why in a few moments. But first, we want to introduce our guest, the esteemed, the one and only, the
auction professor. Yeah, I'm sorry. I had to turn off my volume on the show because I had your channel on as well. Took me a second to figure that out.
either
I'm
that
sorry,
or
folks. I'm last minute hectic as always. This has been a long time since I've been on a live show, and I was just telling Dave he was probably as nervous as I was. So anyway, I'm glad to be here. I appreciate Dave having me on. I'm once again I'm saddened that Chuck isn't here, but that's the breaks of the show, I guess.
Well, the reason Mr. Magazine isn't here is because he is heading down to Myrtle Beach, driving down, which is a 13-hour drive, something like that with this. Yeah, that's basically what I said, with his family. 13-hour drive down. He's spending, I think, a week or 8 days or something like that down there driving back. The other problem that he has is, given it's spring break, his manager is also going to be out of town. So he is running around. You think you're stressed and hectic, and you think I'm stressed and hectic. It's a walk in the park compared to him. He's running around like his hair's on fire right now, trying to get everything lined up so everything can move as smoothly as possible when he's gone. So that's a little bit tough, to say the least.
Yeah, I think last time I talked to him, he had to run out early too. He was running out of town again.
Yep, does that regularly.
Yeah.
I'm going to say hi to a few people here. Welcome in Super Sea Delights, and thank you for being a member. And Jazzy Jeff, and Flippin' Roo, hello. And Wigio, I'm glad to have you as well. Mike Dupree, Don is the man. Looking forward to the night. There you go. Dave's Odds and Ends, thanks for being a member. Good evening. Let's see here. Aaron. Oh, welcome, Aaron. Aaron is the gentleman, Don, who, I'm sure Mr. Magazine would let you use his services as well. He drives all over the country for Mr. Magazine, picking items up. So he's the gentleman that flies to Oregon and drives back, and he went with us to the Pennsylvania deal. He did all the driving and all that. So goes all around the country, and he's actually based out of Michigan, so he's up near you. So
I might actually take him up on that. I actually passed on something in Pennsylvania because I didn't want to drive.
There you go. Yep. Just get in touch with us. We'll put you in touch with Aaron, and we can work it all out.
Yeah, I may actually do that.
Very good. There you go, Aaron. I got you work. 10%. Thanks. Hello, Linda. Artie, Mike. Oh, there you go.
Mike. How you doing? I'm still kind of concentrating back and forth trying to see the chat. So it's been a long time since I've done a live show. It takes a minute to get back used to it.
And Don, thank you for being a member. We all know Don. And Linda, good to see you, Don. Following a lot. Myrtle Beach is a great place, indeed.
Yeah, I've been to Myrtle Beach before. We lived in Florida for 10 years. I actually liked it until I got a little older and I didn't like the heat.
I thought you were going to say, until that hurricane.
Oh, well, that happened too, but it went right over us too. And I worked at Disney when the last one hit.
Oof. Hello, Puddings. Thank you for being a member. And Aquarian, welcome.
Good evening.
Good evening. Steve, Super Steve. How have you been, Don? We're going to get into all that shortly. And thank you for being a member, Roger. And hello, Nancy Ann. Looks like we're all caught up. The gang's all here. All right, we're going to start this off. I warned Don this was going to get a little contentious right out the box, as we kids say. There was somebody, Mike Radio Parts.
Yeah. I'm not going to say his last name, but yeah, I know who you're talking about.
He sent me a short of somebody that was one of these crazy YouTubers that was on maybe a month and a half ago. And his short basically was asking, what happened to the auction professor? He's not putting nearly the videos up. Did he get a 9-to-5 job? So I'm going to ask you right now, point blank, auction professor, do you have a 9-to-5 job?
No. I think Dave would already be able to testify to that, I would hope. But no. Somebody sent me a clip to that thing. It's been up for a while or something. And I had to laugh that they couldn't just email me and ask or post something on one of my pages as opposed to making a video. But no. Do you mind if I just take just a minute to?
Oh, no. Take as long as you'd like.
we have been doing extremely well. Reselling for us has just flown and has skyrocketed. My sales have been solid. Things have been going very well. I'm not a YouTuber, so to speak. I like talking about what I do and making videos, but honestly, I make a lot of money these days from reselling. And for me, that's where the money is at. And with YouTube, there's so many people that just put out BS videos and stuff. Dave and Chuck are not one of them, but there's just so much just, I don't want to say the word, but BS out there that it's sickening to some extent that they're doing all this just for money, and that's not me. I do videos. I am going back to 2 videos a week going forward. I've actually had 2 up last week for the first time. We bought property. I bought house. I've got acreage. We've got a building that's now like half 2-story and will be a complete 2-story building. It was a huge barn. At one time, it had tractors, and then the last person had a whole fleet of antique cars. He had a Maserati. He had a couple of Ferraris. I mean, he had he had a Lambo in there and stuff when we saw it. Anyway, long story short, it's ours. It's an eBay building. We've been working on that building. The next video that comes up on YouTube is actually going to have some clips. So you'll get to see my new office. I've got a full-fledged studio bigger than what our whole bedroom used to be in our last place. Our house alone is more than twice the size of where we used to live. And I've got a 3rd building, and we're actually doing some, we're looking to buy some acreage right now to go along with the local area. So I'm just taking my time and putting my efforts into my personal life in the last 2 years. And I'm going to say something in a minute here that people are going to say I'm just making up, but in the last 2 years, my life has completely changed. I'm totally laid back. I don't have the concerns, worries, or anything else. When I'm living under somebody else's, house, when we were renting and all that stuff, my life is very easy and simple, and just it's all about relisting mostly, with reselling, I should say, mostly. With my personal life, we had a drastic, and I'm not going to talk about details because me and my wife have been trying to put a video together for months now. But in November, the drastic event happened, and because of what I do, because of eBay, and this is not me joking, this is 100%, but drastic event happened. eBay saved my son's life, and I'm just going to put that out there because that's seriously, my whole life has changed to the better. Everything that's going on, including my son, my well-being, every bill that I have is paid through reselling. YouTube is pocket change. And I'm not just saying that. Most people who do YouTube will tell you the same thing. I put out videos, and it's just people just want things. They just want money. And there's people that have put out videos of stuff that was private and used it for their own content. And I want to stay away from the fray. When I put out videos, they're going to be honest, sincere. If I say something about eBay, everybody always says, well, that's not true. Even if I produce proof, even if eBay says it themselves to me. And, I'm trying to stay away from all the BS and the stuff. My life is simple, fun, enjoyable. I've got a totally different life than I've ever had in my entire, years of living. My entire life, this is the best time I've ever had. And it's all because of reselling. And that's what I do. That's literally what I do. Everything about me, everything I have is pretty much through reselling. My vehicles, I don't have car payments because of reselling. Our house is, I won't get into financials, but let's just say we're well ahead on a 15-year mortgage we took out 2 years ago, and we're in the single digits of years left to go. So everything's going in the right direction. You'll have more videos. I have a studio for videos coming up that's well in the stages of, wall-wise coming up. I'll have an office space. I'll have an art studio on top of this store.
Oh, wow.
Work. So I'm not trying to ramble, but when I see that video was offensive to me, to be honest with you. I don't know the person who put it up. All they had to do was put it on a Facebook group or something. Somebody would have called it out to me, as opposed to me seeing 2 or 3 people point to that link, and I see some guy tell me, did he take a job? I said from the start what we're doing. I showed videos of the building with nothing in it, with my wife roller skating in a big empty building. People have seen it, and if you're in one of my groups, my Patreon or YouTube membership, you've seen video of what we're doing. I've got a 2nd floor. I've built it all pretty much by hand myself. We've closed in the building, and my life is working on that. We've redone our kitchen to look like it's a Victorian trade card we use to do it. I own a Victorian house now, 2-story and all that stuff. And anyway, my life is different. I'm enjoying myself. I don't need any of the PS from people attacking us and threats online and stuff. So I'm taking my time. I'm doing it as I want, but the content's going to be just the regular, honest, legit stuff. You can listen to all the other naysayers or whatever, but if you want to know the truth and how I can still do what I'm doing and not have to take a 9-to-5 job, I give it to you. I haven't had a 9-to-5 job in 17 and a half years. I have no need whatsoever to do it. You're probably in the same state as I am. Not personal state, but mental state, physical state, financial state. I don't have the concerns that I used to have. I don't worry about buying whatever I want. That's not a brag. That's just I've done this. It's all from reselling.
So
I know I rambled.
So to summarize, you're not flipping burgers on a night shift at Whataburger.
No, I don't even know if there is any around here.
Now, are you going to be doing any live shows anytime soon? That was always my favorite Thursday night. Friday morning I'd get up and watch the live show. Not to pressure you, but I would love to have you do them, and I would love to be a guest on one at some point.
This was like a test run. If this works, I'm going to go back and watch to make sure I'm check. I've got a log record tracking my video. So if it lags or anything, if I need to do this, I'm actually in my house upstairs on the second floor with this massive view out the front. I'm using Wi-Fi. I'm out in the country, and it's literally our internet comes in beamed off of a water tower about 1.5 miles away, and on and on. So I'm not sure. Wasn't sure. I run a live show test, so I do plan on doing one maybe once a month or something. Again, I've been in stages. I had to fix my scheduling for like Patreon and some of my videos. I used to do them both on the same day or three videos in the same right through the weekend. And now I'm trying to, stack everything. So I do videos now Wednesdays, Fridays, and Sundays. That's for six weeks. I've done that. 8 weeks, maybe 9 or 10 weeks. Now I'm trying to go for 2, on top of that, 2 YouTube videos a week. And then once that rolls for 6 weeks or so, I'll probably start doing live again. Again, my hands are rough like a construction worker. My biggest aggravation and issue these days, other than eBay glitches, is splinters, to be honest with you, because I don't like wearing gloves when I'm working on the building. I'm hands-on person. I grew up that way. So, that once the construction's done, my life will be back to a normal state. Again, my office is literally, we're doing the ceiling. I got my sons out there right now. My oldest is putting panels on the ceiling. Again, literally everything about my life has changed to get here, and then it's going to change when all that's done. Because again, we actually got somebody coming out. We're probably going to get a steel roof on. That'll be another headache off the window. We've got all new plumbing, we got all new electrical, we got all new AC and all that. So we've been investing in getting stuff the way we want it. And anyway.
rumor is you are up to the installation stage.
Yeah, I don't want to put too much out on that one yet, but I'll have a video. The next video, in fact, it's going to be previewed for YouTube members and then Patreon. But the next YouTube video will be up this week still. Second one for this week, 2 weeks in a row. Again, I'm doing it in stages. I don't want to just floor everything back to a normal stage. Everything takes time. Everything, if I figure it's going to take a year, I figure it's going to take 2. And my priorities are to get the kitchen mostly done. We got the flooring, and I'm going to be working on easier stuff. All the heavy work's done in the house mostly. There's a floor I got to do some work. Anyway, I'm a mechanical person. I'm a carpentry person. So anyway, once all that's done, my time is going to go back into doing art videos too. You will see the art professor. There's the advancements in like 3D printing. That building that I'm working on, I've got a room that's just going to have 3D printers in it. We've been working with them now my son's had one for 5 years. I've been messing with them for several years. We do toys on the side. You're going to see a lot of the inside stuff of, money that comes into us is from art and stuff. I'll delve into like crafting and stuff too. So I'm not just doing the reselling. I do all kinds of stuff as everybody knows, you got to diversify, and you can't just stick to one thing, you know.
Absolutely.
Anyway, I know I ramble. I'm a bad rambler. I always have been.
So, well, you said your sales are going fairly well, and Mr. Magazine, who's actually in the chat, we'll get to him in a moment. He also said his sales are doing fairly well. My sales actually have tanked the last couple of days. They were better than I thought over the weekend because I was out of town for the weekend down in Myrtle Beach. And,
as of the 2nd, did they tank?
They tanked yesterday.
2nd, 3rd, 4th.
Yesterday. Yep. Yesterday was terrible. I think I sold 3 items on eBay, but yesterday it was bad across all venues. It wasn't just eBay. It was across all venues yesterday.
We took a hit the day of the, and I'm not going to, this is not political. I'm not saying it at all. Yep. Tariffs are tariffs, whatever, you know, we've had tariffs on countries for years, so I'm not complaining about tariffs, you know, but we did take a hit on the tariff, 24% down in 2 days, right? As of this month, I do projections. So, you know, it doesn't affect the end of the month. In the last 2.5 days, we've already made up 13% of that. So now I'm down to 11, and it's only the 9th or 10th day. So at the end of the month, I will be at my 5 digits as always, I will say. I can't see anything changing that at all, even if it drops 5 or 10%, because we're still at that mark anyway. So as long those numbers have been solid now, this is the 7th month in a row we're entering into with the same kind of numbers. And again, we're doing a bunch of stuff. I know Chuck has a ton of inventory, and he's got his own site and the whole work. So, you know, diversifying, that's what I can tell you. I know you do multiple things too and stuff. So, I mean, it's all about diversifying and stuff and paying attention to your stuff. Don't just let it sit there and stuff. And in all honesty, I'm to the point where it's almost like autopilot these days. You know what I mean? I've got a routine. Everybody here does the same thing every day. And, you know, it's autopilot. I don't know how else to explain it. When I worked at a restaurant, when you got things down and you figured out your rhythm and everything else, it was like autopilot. And this nights always went smooth. And that's the stage I guess we're in. I've had a very restful, peaceful 2 years. Even with I love the work. I love the construction. I love being able to change whatever I want and do whatever I want. And my business is still going. And I cut off YouTube, you know, as many videos because I'd rather spend the time on my personal stuff. I earned the right to do this because I've spent almost, we're going on 30 years of reselling, you know, at this point. So I've earned it, you know. You have too. I'm not, you know what I mean.
No, I'm not taking on.
It's taken me a long time to get here. So, you know, a lifelong of sorrow and barely getting by. And, you know, I'm here, so I'm going to enjoy it.
Over the last week, I have sold 4 items over on Etsy, which is better than this time of year usually is for Etsy. Etsy goes very, very well around the holidays for the things that I sell, and then it slows down this time of year. So selling 4 in a week, I'm happy with. And I did sell 1 item over on papergoy.com. Do check it out. How about any buys? You been buying anything, Don?
Yeah, the next video is the haul video. Okay. Just on some, in fact, I showed you, I think you saw a photo I got, real nice, impressive. I mean, I was floored when I found that. But we got some paper hauls. I got another haul video of some new items. Sales wise, have been going good with some of the stuff I've had from inventory. I'm only buying right now from my pickers.
Okay.
Obviously, I went to Goodwill. We weren't outsourcing. We were stuck. Me and the wife went out. We did some. That's what I do on my days off, I guess, and I've always done that. So I got some clothes. I don't have any here with me, but I got a few pieces of clothes to wear. I don't resell clothing, and I got a new leather jacket for my collection. But
nice. You're exactly like me. Like I don't do garage sales, except the person across the street has a garage sale every month.
I would walk across the street.
I walk across the street.
Nobody lives across the street or around us. I have like 3 neighbors and a visual sight, I guess you would say.
Yeah.
And that ain't really close.
And let's see. Hello, Uriah. Welcome back to Don. Linda, only 3 people she follows on YouTube, and you would apparently be one of them, and hopefully we are another one. I would agree. There's been a lot of BS on YouTube. Can understand the focus or the desire to focus on the business. Absolutely. Mr. Magazine, hello everybody. Sorry I couldn't make it. He misses everyone except me. Well, there we go. And the feeling
I never knew his name until right now.
There you go.
No, it's Chuck.
Yep, as Mr. Magazine. And trust me, the feeling is mutual, and Don feels the same way.
No, I like talking to him. He's a Star Wars guy. I like that.
I know. I just saw the new Auction Professor video about presidential collectibles increasing in value. I'm going to start scouring my Victorian scrapbooks. There you go.
Presidential collectibles. To be honest, they caught me off guard because I pay attention to stuff like that, and I was going back. I check my numbers all the time. I want to know what's sold, what hasn't sold, and where I can push stuff. And I'm like, oh my gosh, those prices have been steadily going up. And then again, I know they've been sending in stuff, but even the damaged stuff now we're selling for more than I used to sell the Primo 9.0 kind of grade stuff. I would sell. Now we're selling the damaged stuff for the price the Primo cards we're going for. So I mean, they're swapping. I just pulled out another 20 some odd cards like that will be selling pretty good. Presidential stuff, especially those cards, even going up to the caramel, from the caramel candy ones and the
American
bread cards
caramel.
with the presidentials from 1932 and before. All that stuff is like triple what they were at the pandemic timeframes, and they haven't dropped. There's no sign they're fluctuating or nothing.
Wow. And Schmidt Auctions, welcome in. Schmidt Auctions does a lot over on Whatnot. We'll be at the Allentown Paper Show as well. I will actually, I don't know if you've heard the exciting news or not, Don, but Schmidt will be live streaming over on Whatnot interviews, and she found an interviewer to do interviews. So I'll be interviewing various dealers and all that over there, and we'll be recording it on my phone as well, and then we'll have Random Neighborhood Kid take the best snippets of the interviews and post them over on the channel as well. So it should be a lot of fun down in Allentown. Amazing setup Don has now for sure. Treasure Finders, Tennessee. And I've Don doesn't know this, but I'm actually outside in his backyard, as you can notice from behind me.
I wondered what you were doing. Your show, so it's, if that's what you wanted.
And there's that side there. We found Waldo. He's right over there, in case you were wondering. Do you know what Waldo's name originally was, or what his name is in Britain, Don? Put you on the spot here.
No, I don't. That's the only time I've ever ran into a Waldo other than a T-shirt.
Wally. He actually started out as Where's Wally, and then they changed to Waldo for the North American market. There you go.
Did not know that.
We are the only YouTube channels breaking down Waldo 20 years after it was popular.
I kept it just because I got annoyed in one of the boxes too. Remember the Noid?
Yeah. I avoid that.
Well, if it's the only one I ever see, I keep them because if it's taken me that long to run into them, I'm like, when am I going to see another one?
Yep. That's exactly what Mr. Magazine and I have been preaching for years with the magazines. Having done it as long as we have, if we come across a title, now I'm not talking about a title that came out a year ago, but I'm talking about older titles. If you come across a title we've never seen before, yeah, I'm buying it, because if I haven't seen it in 25 years of picking, it's not a common title.
Yeah, I collect certain things. Like I finished my Vampirella collection, so I got to figure out what else I'm going to start getting. It's only taken me 7 or 8 years to do it because I've been piecemealing it, and I think I hauled probably 85% of it and only had to buy the last 15.
Well, I completed a year or two ago my 55 Bowman set baseball that I started collecting when I was about 10 years old. So I put about 40 years into collecting it. And I'm only 25 cards from a 1964 top set now, which I've been working on for about the same amount of time. So sometimes
that Bowman set, even as a child, would have been harder to come by.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I loved it because that was the TV set, and it looked like the TV. They had the picture in the center of a
I know exactly what you're talking about. I'm not a sports person, but I've seen so many sports cards looking at other cards that I do like cards in general.
Yep. So been working on that set and working on all these various sets for years. So
well, I had two. I was collecting Metal Men, and now I have the first app and everything, showcase and the whole works. So now I'm all done with Metal Men. He works for the man.
I'm sure he does.
There's absolutely not a single thing wrong with working for somebody, because I did it for, even when I hated the job. I had a boss that he'd call you names, and he didn't care if you worked, open to close, even though he wouldn't do it. And personally, I hated people like that, because if I was afraid, if I couldn't do it, I would never ask somebody else to do it, because just the example you're trying to set, if you're not tough enough to do the job and you want me to do it, I'm like, I know you earn a spot from being in the company and a manager and general and all that stuff. But the point was, I wanted to show I could cook. If I had to fire somebody even to cook, most of the other managers were afraid they wouldn't want to have to cook. But I made sure I knew how to cook, because then I could fire anybody in the restaurant and fill their spot in a second.
Yep.
I hate to say it like that, but if somebody's
No.
stealing from me, which happens in every restaurant I've ever been in, probably once a week you catch somebody stealing. I don't care. I just got rid of them if they were stealing from me and stuff.
Hello.
Yeah, as I said, there will be a live show coming up soon. I have done one live, or maybe two, on Patreon as well too, in the last 2 years. Because it's been 2 years since I think I've had an official YouTube live show.
When I was down in Myrtle Beach, I did go to Florence Flea Market in South Carolina, about an hour outside of Myrtle Beach. Let me tell you, it's a little different than the flea markets I'm used to. I did buy 6 comics for $5 over there. It was actually kind of funny. The lady had comics. They were some 10-cent cowboy doll and some, remember there was a Three Stooges comic in there and a Jetsons comic in there.
Dell Three Stooges 4-color series.
Actually, it was like
DC Three Stooges or something.
No, it was, I happen to have them right here.
I love the Three Stooges, so.
The Outlaws is Coming. That one right there. Gold key. Yeah. So the lady goes, the comics are $1 each. And it was actually funny. I didn't mean to say it this way. I said, you've got 6, you'll take 5. And I didn't raise my voice up like I was asking a question. It was almost like a command. And she goes, okay. I'm like, well, that wasn't exactly the way that it was supposed to come out. But I may try that from now on. You'll take this for it. Hand them the money. But that was a crazy flea market. There were only 3 people I saw there with any vintage paper at all. I think I saw 2 people that had books. And it was a pretty good sized flea market. I could have bought more chickens than I could have bought books. Let's put it that way. You're walking around, you got the chickens, you got the guinea hens, you got the dogs, you've got people. I mean, people were selling puppies. They were
Isn't that in the hurricane zone though still?
Yeah, it still would be. Yep.
Down south, we lived through a couple of hurricanes. In fact, we lost a house in a hurricane, and down there, like anything historic from the Gulf Coast area on up, a couple hundred miles on the coast is gone. So I mean, that's why the prices are up on like even standard New Orleans postcards. The prices have risen. But again, the hurricanes, you just don't see paper. We sourced down there for years, and maybe in Mount Dora or Renninger's in Mount Dora, the Monday 5 in the morning flea market and stuff. That kind of place, maybe down that way, was the only place I ever saw paper. Yeah, everything else was just dry paper. It was all you could find military and hard goods, I would call them, collectible hard goods.
Well, you could buy long guns. There were people walking around selling and buying the guns and walking around with that as well. And let's just say it was a bit different than things are up here in New York State.
Have you ever set up at a flea market?
Yeah. Rochester ones I did a few times. Yeah.
I used to set up at Mount Dora and Managers for a couple of years. Every single weekend, somebody brought me a pistol or a gun, seeing if I'd buy it. Because I had military stuff on the table, helmets and stuff like that. So I expected it. I mean, I've had people offer me a Luger with the paperwork and bullets and, all kinds of cool stuff. But I had, I wasn't interested in a pistol at that time. The times have changed, of course, but, we've always had long guns, rifles and stuff. But
yeah, it was interesting. I did see Mr. Buys a lot when I was down there. He has some good stuff. Our deal is still in the works. I have the pile of stuff I want. We just got to work on the price. That is one of the things Mr. Magazine is doing when he's down there. He's looking to see maybe we can bundle a larger deal and get a better price. And if not, then I know what I want from him as well. So good guy. Got about 26 minutes, I think it was, 26-minute interview that I did with him that we'll be posting on the channel as soon as Random Neighborhood Kid gets over here and gets it off my phone and gets it up for me. So that's that. And went over to an estate sale. And I know you don't do estate sales much, but you would definitely, I believe, do this, Don. And I want to ask you your opinion. So I went into this house, and it's right on the lake, and it's just big, beautiful, split-level house on the lake. You could tell it was an old, nice house right on the water, right here in Rochester. What advice would you give to people walking into a house like that? You could tell it's been in the family for years type deal.
Well, family, if it's like a family-owned house,
Yeah.
family-owned is the biggest factor in any of that stuff. Like around here, we tried to buy some of the land around us. It's all family-owned. Everything. His son owns this one. His brother owns that one and stuff. The family stuff means that there is stuff that's old as can be usually in a house like that, especially if it's in New England, the colonial era towns and stuff. I've sourced. We did Brimfields and the whole works. We did all of New England. New York was, we used to live, I don't know, 35 minutes from Canadian border, and we go around and do Niagara Falls. We come back to New York, and when I was younger and stuff. So that area is great for family stuff. You get provenance. So if it's in fact, there was a estate sale in Portland, up in New England, Portland, and I got a powder horn there. And it came, the family had it sitting on their fireplace. The house was built in like 1768 or something, real low ceilings and everything. And the powder horn to them wasn't, anything other than a family heirloom and stuff. And at this point, the kids had no idea who even the family were. So I ended up getting it, but I got the whole provenance, and I was able to get the guy's military record. And it was just a phenomenal experience and stuff. I don't remember what we sold it for, but it was like 10 times what we paid for it by the time we got the military record, and we waited. I think it took 6 weeks back then. I don't know what they take nowadays, but I still do. I still always go to those type of military sales, at least, because I love the military. I love uniforms. I love buttons and stuff. And so for me, any of that stuff, I thought I've got a sword here that I picked up the other day. Talking about things you bought, I might have it in the closet here, but I got a nice Civil War sword in the closet, a Horseman Brothers. But anyway,
right. Kind of my point, it ties sort of into yours as well. Nothing against anybody that has tchotchkes in their house like this. They don't have Dollar General stuff in their house.
No, not at all.
They do not. They have had money for a long time, and that gives you the courage to go outside of what you know, because you can make the assumption that they weren't buying better stuff across the board. And so you can buy things that are outside of what your comfort zone is, because I know it's better because of the house it came from. They weren't buying junk back then. They're not buying junk now. They've always got better stuff. And I think that is something for somebody, if you do go to a nice estate sale like that, take some chances. You just absolutely never know what you might find. Now, this family was so well heeled. Are you familiar with Phillips Exeter?
Sounds familiar, but I couldn't place it at all at this point.
It is the 6th oldest boarding school in America. And of course, they had a yearbook from there. So back in 1925, probably the grandfather was going to the 6th oldest boarding school in America. They had some money back in the day, and they still had money. They had yearbooks there from some.
What was the name of it?
Phillips Exeter, Exeter. You got one?
Now you got me curious while you're talking here. I'm going to look it up and see if it's in my book.
They had yearbooks from some of the more private Rochester schools, but I'm not talking the Catholic schools. Nothing against the Catholic schools. The more elite Rochester schools. Go ahead.
Is that the area where you live in Rochester?
I live in Rochester. Yeah. Phillips is up in New Hampshire, something like that. Yeah.
I was just going to say, I sold a Rochester City button the other day. I see stuff from that area. Anything in New York and stuff, even Long Island stuff can be fairly valuable. There's some sections in Long Island. I've sold postcards. Most people say Long Island postcards aren't worth nothing, but I've sold postcards from Long Island for like $150, $225 in that range quite often because of the area. They got I don't know what they're called, little city areas in Long Island. I've never been through Long Island. I've been to New York, but not Long Island.
Yeah, you got out to the Hamptons and whatnot. Yeah, money.
Never been to the Hamptons.
But I mean,
I've been to New York City before.
Money's no object at those places as far as that.
Yeah. It's like Quebec, the French Canadian side of the section over there. It's the only place in Canada we ever had somebody snotty to us. Well, if you ever been up there, I knew enough French to get myself in trouble is all I did, because I tried to be nice and polite, and I guess I messed up one of the words, and the guy went off on me, and I was like, okay, whatever. I'm not going to talk French or even try to.
So the item of the week I wound up getting. Now, do you buy yearbooks when you find them?
I have. I do. I'll say yes, I do, but I'm very selective. I have sourced and bought every one my father was in, which is 3 of them, and stuff like that. And there's some military ones. I do buy ones that I know that someone famous is in them.
Right.
I do have a list of like, I don't know, I think there's 800 or 900 yearbooks that I look for on a list. It's on my phone, so if it's not on my phone and on my list, I usually just don't grab it.
Well, I was there and they had $3 for hardcover books. It was the second day, so it was $1.50. And I saw the Phillips Exeter yearbook, 1925, and I said, that's going to be a better yearbook. So I grabbed that one and went up to the counter and buying a few other books. I said, I'm going to take the rest of the yearbooks. Why not? So I took the rest of the yearbooks. They had 6 of them, I think. So I paid $9 for 6 other yearbooks. Well, one of them that was in there was this one right over here. Have you ever heard of Smith College? It's an all-women's college.
Doesn't ring a bell.
Up in the East Coast. Well, I didn't realize this. And this is, I'm sure, something that Don does as well. If you do pick up yearbooks, do a search on famous alumni. Find out what years the famous alumni were there. Well, this is, I believe, the 1956 yearbook. And wow, look, there happens to be a piece of paper in it that wasn't there when I bought it. And when you look over here, this fine beauty right over here, have you ever heard right there? Have you ever heard of Gloria Steinem?
Of course. Yeah, see, I've got a list of pretty much, somebody else sent me most of it, and I've just added through the years, but that might even be on my list. I used to look heavy for stuff like that when you could get them for $1 or so, but I'm lazy on books. I don't like taking the 6 photos, I guess, and they don't thrill me as much as famous people don't thrill me otherwise. I mean, I like signatures, I like autographs, but I'm not as thrilled anymore. I've got stacks of movie star photos, and I don't know. Yearbooks are pretty good because there's a very limited quantity of them, I would say, but it has to be, again, someone famous in the yearbook. John Wayne's yearbook, for example. I know one of those sold for like $1,700. And it was, pardon me, crappy condition.
Yep. Yeah. So again, that was one of those. I just bought them because I was at the sale. I was holding off on buying them because I had to park way down the street and I didn't really want to carry all the books. And I'd gotten the books that I got. And I said, I can fit this in there. And then I get home and find out, which I didn't know when I bought it, that Gloria Steinem's in there. It's about $125 book. So not bad for $1.50 when you get down to it. Can't argue with that whatsoever. So very, very happy with that purchase.
Any of those cheap if let's say there's yearbooks for $1, $1.50, I might buy a whole stack of them that way. It would have to be cheap for me to mess with it these days. If I, like Time Life's old Western set, I've had that a few times. That's about the max limit I'd ever want to mess with books like that.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's just a ton of extra work. I've stopped messing with those giant ones other than paper. Well, buttons, I guess. I keep saying other than, but yeah, we did buy a bunch of comic books the other day too. So I guess I should just shut up, I guess.
Are you going to do a tour video when everything's all done?
I've been doing segments here and there on progress over the last, I think maybe once a month or once every 6 weeks, I put a video out on Patreon or something and YouTube and stuff on it. When the studio's done, I'm not going to be able to show much of it other than when I'm doing I've got video space already set up. We've got everything laid out. I drew everything, the plans myself, and there's going to be space where I can show you some things, but maybe right before I occupy it, I might. But a point being here is I do a lot of stuff on the side, and we've had a toy line that we've been working on. I've got an animated short, 20-minute short we've been working on for 5 or 6 years now, and I've got stuff related to that I just don't want out there because we've been trying to get a deal with a streaming service, let's just say. I don't want to say anything else other than that, just for obvious reasons. But there's certain things I don't want to show in my life. I don't show videos on sourcing because I don't source like everybody. I don't just go to some random place. I'm very specific on who I deal with, where I go. And I can't do certain types of things like a tour of the front half maybe, but I doubt that my personal space with my studio, once it's been occupied, it's done. I just got too many secrets that I don't want people doing similar things. And I've had so many people rip off stuff I do and promote it as theirs and all kinds of stuff. And it gets old after a while.
Oddly, nobody steals what I do, but that's a whole nother issue.
I bet you $1 million every one of your videos is on a Russian site. Somebody posted that, and I've already dealt with that like 4 years ago. Every one of my videos that goes up, a YouTube video, is on a Russian site within a month from it going up. And I bet you yours are too.
Maybe I'm a big star in Russia. Got to be a big star somewhere. And
They've got money incentives. They get so many cents when, I don't know how it all works, but it's, again, they do commercials on it. So they're getting commercials on my videos in Russian. There's nothing I can do about it.
Maybe
it's been going on for years.
Maybe someday someone will send you a couple of rubles will show up in the mail, and you'll be like, "Well, thanks." And we'll talk after the show. I'll let you license paper going for one of the characters for your action figure line. We'll work it out. Hello, Midwest Picker. He's actually going to be a guest on a show in 2 weeks, and next week we actually very, very excited. You're going to want to tune in next week, Don. We've got Pika Books, who specializes in Asian books. Doesn't sell online, just sells at bookstores and all that, or the ephemera fairs where I met him at. He sells at book shows and all that. So it should be really interesting talking to an old school book dealer. And he recently transitioned because he lost his job. He recently transitioned into full-time reselling as well. So really, really looking forward to talking with him next week. So that should be a lot of fun as well.
Like old books.
You used to work in a restaurant. I learned something new this past week when I was at Myrtle Beach. It was actually Mrs. Papergoy and my anniversary, and I took her out to a nice restaurant.
Congratulations, in case I forget.
Oh, thank you. I'm sure the couple of rubles gift is in the mail, but that's a whole nother story. We went to a nice restaurant, but I was a little concerned about the dress code because I only had shorts and jeans. I didn't obviously bring any nice clothes down. So I gave them a call to ask, well, A, for reservations, and B, what the dress code was. And they told me, and see if you know what this is, because I did not. Do you know what resort casual is?
Probably like a Hawaiian shirt, slacks, pants, no jeans and deck shoes or something maybe.
Basically, shorts were okay. Jeans were okay. Shorts were okay. Button-up shirt really is what it means. They want a button-up shirt. They don't want you, you're not wearing, sweatpants and a t-shirt. But anything above that, they were calling resort casual. I'm like, okay.
I haven't heard it called that.
Neither have I. No.
We went to Mackinac Island, and the Grand Hotel on there, after 4 o'clock, when I was younger, you had to have a suit or a sports jacket and a tie on and dress shoes just to be on the entrance area and past that point, just to get into the place. And there's there's New York, a couple of clubs we were in that you had to wear a tie and stuff like that. I was a manager, so I have got like 150 ties, no exaggeration, and a mess of sports jackets and stuff. I try to wear the vintage ones, though, when they say you got to wear one just to be where they can't really say anything, but they want to, you know what I mean?
Now, back in your old Studio 54 days, Don, I know.
Well, not that far back.
And welcome, Adrian. Actually met up with her down subscriber, met up with her down in Myrtle Beach, had a nice lunch and good talk. So that was a lot of fun as well. We're going to get into glitches, Don. Have you noticed any glitches on eBay this last week?
Have I noticed any glitches? Geez, the end and sell similar fiasco, they tried to blame off on, how many days are in February on the 28th.
Yep.
That lasted until, and it's still semi going on, but I've spent some time checking that out and asked around, and I took database and construction and all that stuff. So I know how the whole system works because I did it in college. I have an IT degree, and what I think they've done is they've changed the times they do like backups and stuff on the database itself, as opposed to like the server. So I think that's what it is, because I tried running it on Sunday when it should have been busy on the platform, and it sells similar the night before I usually do it, and it worked fine. And so then I said, well, that's got to be what's going on, because it's only on the mornings when I'm doing it, but I get up real early. So, I think that's probably what they're doing. So I've adjusted our time and it's working again. So I don't know if that's a glitch. I'm not sure what I would call that, but I wonder if they move the time frame they do those from the middle of the night till, early morning. Sunday, it should have been jammed up busy if it was ever anything related to the system itself, unless it was intentional or they would do a feature or function or a service on the system would be my guess.
Ephemeral, you will see me down in Allentown. Definitely walk up and say hi. $5, I'll take a picture with you. But you have to have change because I only carry 10. Mr. Magazine had to cancel an order. The refund didn't go through, so the order wasn't canceled. I don't know if you've ever seen that or not.
No.
Yep, never had seen that before. So then I clicked on it. It says there was an issue with the refund. And right on the thing, it says there's an option to retry refund. You're supposed to push the retry refund to see if it goes through again. You're never going to guess what happens, Don.
Same thing.
There is no option that says retry refund. So the help email and the help says there is, and then you look on it, there's not. So you have to actually go to the item, use the drop down, and send a refund out that way.
Yeah, you know what they've done when this stuff started to happen when they changed how the mail works. Because now if I want to go to a mail and it's not the last one I just looked at, they're disconnected. So you got to hunt through, even though you clicked respond to question. And now, like before, you could post that question in your answer
you can't
to
do
the
that.
item. You can't do that. They've removed the duplicate item listing. They've removed ending soonest listing. They've removed like 6 different quick links that was the only way to get to some features from the main landing page of the hub, which in my opinion is a glitch because some idiot did it by accident, would be my take. I can't imagine. I mean, I've already talked to people who had duplicate listings were disappeared and all this other stuff. And eBay said that they could check and see duplicate listings as only they can do it. I'm like, why did you remove the darn feature? Because every other week there's it go up and down in listings because of what they do with glitching out listings. They create another one. So you get duplicate listings. And I know that's what's going on. I think you can pretty much confirm that.
Oh, thank you, Uri. I'd say thank you to both of you. 5 years ago, I started watching you both and went full-time reselling. As of this month, we'll break 7 figures in the next couple of months for my $1,400 investment. That is incredible.
Congratulations.
Incredible. Thank you. Thank you very much. Definitely do appreciate that. And I'm actually, I don't know. I get a little choked up when I hear things like that. I'm glad, and I'm sure you are as well, that we can do some good in the world, I guess is what it comes down to. And I'm glad that we can help people, both of us.
Yeah, and I would say I talk too much. I know that. I would say too, I get people that are in dire situation coming to me. And a lot of the times it's because they listen to somebody on YouTube spewing something they never texted, never checked, and they listened to their advice and they got themselves in trouble reselling. And that was their only livelihood. And that's when I've talked to like single moms and stuff like that. And being in a situation where my father died when I was young, I understand the whole feeling. I know my family never had money. I've probably outdone all my family before me monetarily wise, at least if you go back to about 1900. So I get it. You know, I want to help somebody. That's again why I'm not sitting out. I don't push up BS videos. I'm not trying to clickbait. If I put the title in there, it's because that's what I feel it is.
Yep.
You know, if I say, you know, that eBay honestly saved my son's life, I'm not exaggerating. Me and the wife were devastated. I mean, I'm not going to get into too much because it's still very emotional, but I can't. It's a love and hate situation with eBay and reselling in general, mostly eBay. But, you know, eBay has done a world of good for us. No matter who runs it, the site itself is great. And if you put enough time and effort into this, I think anybody can succeed at this if you're motivated enough, if you've got the drive. And my family is it. I don't care what anybody else says. I'm not going back to work for anybody else. And, you know, I'll work, you know, 50 hours a day if that was possible to make sure that my family would be okay. And that's all that I need to know is my family's okay. I mean, I don't know what anybody else does, but whether that's your loved ones, whoever that may be, or whatever the case may be. I know somebody who's just got pets, and all their money goes into helping their pets, which is fine. We got four rescue animals, so I completely get that too. So whatever your love is,
Yep.
This can do it. I'm
yeah, no doubt. And the other thing too, and I think this is what makes your channel real and what makes our channel real. We never give you the answers because they're generally
do it yourself. Check it out. Don't just take our word for it.
Well, the other thing too is there are a lot of wrong ways to do it, but there are no right ways to do it. There are multiple ways to do it. And I do it the way that I do it. And in fact, you've got the Patreon, we've got the paywall over here. And
I got one over here too.
Yeah. And anybody that's behind the paywall will tell you, you can pretty much tell what my answer is going to be on anything I bring up. Should you buy these? Well, it depends. And that's really what it is all the time. Because
mostly the cost of the item and the condition, the rarity.
And also, how quickly do you need to move stuff? What is your storage situation? Take yearbooks. They're the perfect example. Should you buy them? If you can give them for $1, obviously, if they've got somebody famous and you're paying $1.
I'll buy them for 10, 20, 30, 40, $50, $100 if it has the right person.
Right.
You know,
but,
can I just throw something out here? I would have to say that again, I'm not trying to bash YouTubers and stuff. I would say Dave is as passionate about reselling and what he talks about and what he does. I think the biggest factor here is that the fact that this is personally my life. This is all I do is basically. Dave's passionate, and he's one of the first few I ever met on here. Chuck as well too. He's not here, but the point is that the passion is what gets me going with stuff. I don't give a hoot if you're famous or rich or nothing. Money doesn't drive me at all, honestly. Passionate is for me. I had a video chat with eBay years back and stuff, and I don't think they had a clue on how to react to how I am and the passion and the way I was talking to them, because I let them have it. I didn't care. I'm telling you, this is my life, and I was explaining it. And I think too many people just do this thinking it's going to be quick money, and they're not really into it. And Dave's into it. Dave's a collector. I'm a collector. We're lifelong. Dave, as he talked about, collection of his Bowman cards since he was a kid. I've got my Star Wars cards from 1978 still. I've got a bunch of stuff from my childhood. That's the difference. We're passionate about it, not just because we resell it, but because it's always been part of our lives.
Yep.
Chuck, Star Wars has always been part of his life since he was a child.
Yep, absolutely.
I mean, Star Wars changed my life. We had Star Wars wallpaper my parents ordered. I had the curtains, the bed sheets, the action figures, anything I could think of. My parents bought the 8mm film for the house because VHS recorders at that time were like $700. My parents couldn't afford one, but they had the projector from 1960, whatever, from their marriage and stuff. And, I go way back to the days, and it's passion.
I'll give you a good one, Don.
Pardon me?
I'll give you a good one. They actually played Star Wars on the radio, and my father taped it on a reel-to-reel tape, and then we would listen to it afterwards. My dad probably still has that reel-to-reel tape somewhere.
When I was a little older, it was past Star Wars, unfortunately. My grandparents lived in an apartment, and behind them was a drive-through, and their balcony overlooked the drive-through. And if you've ever been to drive-throughs, Dave, you remember you could turn it in on the regular radio because you were close enough. We could listen to it as well as watch it off their balcony.
That's cool.
So we'd watch. I think Empire was out when they were in that apartment, and we watched Empire Strikes Back. I don't know. Every time we went over there for like 6 or 8 weeks or something, and we went over there at least maybe once or twice a week. So I mean, let's stay the night at Grandma's house. Grandpa's house.
I used to try going there on my bike, but the problem was when you took that big metal thing and put it on the bike, it would fall over. But that's a whole other story.
With Star Wars. When I was, how old was I? 8 or 9. Me and my brother snuck down to the movie theater. My mom had no clue. We saved up all of her money to go to the early show, and I watched it 7 times in the first 2 weeks it was out. At the Dollar Theater down there at the end. There used to be a Dollar Theater thing, but and I snuck out all the time to see it. I think we saw it 47 times in the first year, and I'm not exaggerating. I was totally gung ho Star Wars everything.
People on the phone, which I know you don't list with the phone, but they're getting dings like a sale, and it's actually telling them to complete their drafts. And then other people, yesterday was a huge problem. They weren't able to list things because they couldn't access their business policies. So it wasn't letting them list items using the phone yesterday. And then I had a problem today. Somebody wanted to put a return in, and I clicked through to give them the shipping label. And I get the "it's not you, it's us" error, and it said one of our servers.
On the phone?
I know that one was on the computer. I don't do anything on the phone unless I'm out of town. Although I did notice, because when I was out of town in Myrtle Beach, you make the counter offers to people using the phone. You can't put the little message in like you can on the computer explaining why. Somebody had made me a really low offer on something, and I needed more money because I had free shipping on the item. And I was going to say it's got free shipping, because sometimes people overlook that. There's nowhere in there you can put down, here's why I'm making you this counter offer. But when you're on the computer, it's like, explain to them why you're asking this price, give them a good deal. But then they don't let you do that on the phone.
Well, this is the phone app would never allow me until 2 or 3 days ago to ever send out offers to watchers on it. It never worked, no matter what. The newest version, my phone, a different phone, all that stuff never worked, and it's finally working where I can at least send offers to watchers from my phone. So I'm at least happy with that, because if I'm out of the house, I try to do respond to offers to watchers all the time, because we get a ton of sales from that. that's been probably the biggest push in getting good sales constantly for us.
Yeah.
We send them out. If somebody's buying a computer every 20, 30, 40 minutes, they're probably just quick overlook before they list something else and check if there's 2 or 3 there, they send them out. If you don't send them out, other people send them and then they can't get them.
Yep, absolutely. And that's why when I do go away, I expect slower sales because I don't make the offers to watchers. But now that you say that it's available on the phone, I'll check
it. Does. It actually works. We were talking about this, I think, months ago, that the size of our stores, it wouldn't allow it. You're probably right. And it works like a dream, at least sending them out. I was really surprised because I said, well, let me check it. Somebody told me, hey, they've updated the app and all this stuff, and there's some glitches, but this works. So sure enough, it does.
Good. And then yesterday, a subscriber reached out to me, said they got an error trying to use their supply coupon. How you get the free supplies for having the store. After a half an hour on the phone with eBay, they were told it was site-wide. Try again in 24 to 48 hours, which great. And then all these problems here with eBay, I don't know if you noticed or not, but when you go to look at a sold item, now a different screen comes up with a small picture, and then you got to click again on a thing that says see original listing in order to get a large picture because something had sold and I wanted to see what the cover looked like so I could pull it quickly. And there's a small little picture and I got to click again to see it. I'm like, why are you messing with stuff?
Phone or is that?
That was on the laptop or on the computer. Yeah, it was on the computer. Yep. So they've changed that as well. So that was.
I haven't seen that yet, but maybe they're rolling it out slow roll again because that's what they usually do. They roll them out so many here and so many here, and
yep. But why? But why? Stop tweaking stuff. Any of us ask is more traffic. That's all any of us are asking for. You give us more traffic, we'll make more sales. You make more money. We're all happy. I don't need when you go to relist that now when you go to relist the unsold, instead of it being a blue line, it's the 4 colors of eBay. I don't know why you wasted your time changing that. I don't need that. I'm sure you saw that. It was about 3 months ago.
I hate most of the changes they do. Like you can't just click the trash can to delete photos when you're going to add new photos to a sell similar or something. Yep. You got to click select and you got to do this.
Yeah, extra
most
step.
of the things take more steps, like refunds. It's an extra step now.
Yep.
It makes no sense. They've deleted things that were helpful. The duplicate listing I could instantly check before I did end and sell similar. It makes everything they've done and removed makes no sense unless they're trying to go back to 10 years ago, 15 years ago when the site had glitches, more glitches than they have now.
Insulting offer of the week. Mr. Magazine had a 2001-2002 Upper Deck Premier patch. Wayne Gretzky. $64. You got a $15 offer on it. And then he had 4 Rumpelmints mini steins in pipes. So it was 4 items total, $27. I'm sure you've heard of Rumpelmints. I haven't heard that name in a long time until he sent me that. They offered $7.53, which I don't know why you would offer $7. It had to be with the shipping. It had to be.
Shipping, yeah, I was just going to say. I get those weird ones. And then if you look at shipping, it comes out to like an even dollar amount.
Yeah. Countdown to Brimfield. Well, I'm not going to be making it in May, but we're holding out hope for September.
Brimfield's awesome.
Yeah, I've talked to a number of people, and they all tell me that I need to go to that.
You've never been?
No, never been there.
Oh, we flew into New England just to go to that when we were working when I was working for Einstein Brothers.
Hello, Ed. Welcome aboard.
Good evening.
You've never seen this part of our show before, Don, so it's a very, very exciting part of the show. Mr. Magazine loves it. It's called the Confucius Joke of the Week. I'm sure you've had Homer and Jethro records before.
I probably have a couple. I've got Hound Dog by Homer and Jethro right now in a 78.
There you go. Well, they were comedians that were hired by Cornflakes to do a Confucius, a takeoff of Confucius. And I've got the book and every whatnot auction of mine at 20 past the hour. I give you the Confucius Joke of the Day. I pull the best one and provide it to you over here. Are you ready? Are you sitting down? Are you ready to laugh, Don?
Go for it.
Confucius say, man who keep nose to grindstone, good for nothing but cutting bread with his nose.
It's like a hee-haw sketch.
Man who keep nose to grindstone, good for nothing but cutting bread with his nose. And that was the Confucius Joke of the Week. Stop on by tomorrow. You'll get them live.
laughing or something too.
Yeah, absolutely. Customer issues. I had a guy, and this was annoying because I was out of town at the time. You've heard of Rod McEwen, the poet. I'm sure you've seen the 1970s poetry books. He was real big in the early 70s.
My wife would probably know that name.
I had 9 poetry books together in a lot. He goes, what books? I said, the picture. He goes, the picture shows 4. I said, is there a second picture? Oh, yeah. Well, that shows 4. So then I got to look. No, it shows 5. It shows the spine of 4 and the front of 1 to show 5. So then I had to tell him what they were. And of course, he doesn't buy them. Because of course.
I have to say it's been pretty easy lately, other than the eBay glitchy thing. But
I love this one over here. Mr. Magazine got an email from somebody on Amazon. And when you're on Amazon, you get those disassociated emails sometimes that don't tie into anything. And this person said, with no reference at all to anything. Hi, can you tell me what this book is about and the main character's name? I'm interested in buying it, but need a little more detail, please. Gee, he's only got 5,000 books to look through. It would help if you told him which one it was.
I've seen that where it's not connected.
Right. Yeah.
I've also seen a general question about something unrelated to the item they're asking for, which was forwarded through Amazon for me to respond. I get those fairly often.
This one was kind of interesting. I had a Michigan Chess Bulletin from 1972. So it was a local chess magazine. I secured a draw against Mr. Martz in a simulation held in Fargo, North Dakota. I was a student of Dr. Papel and was able to beat him once in the game at his home. I was his mailman for a while in 1986. So I love hearing things like that, and I know you do as well, because that magazine means something to that guy. Because the people he had played against and studied under were in that magazine. And so that really, and you were talking about the passion earlier. I think that's part of what the whole passion is as well. Just the fact that we're handling history, and that's history to that person. It's something really important to that person. And it makes you feel good when you reunite something like that with somebody. Definitely.
Well, even with us, like I found, well, most people probably wouldn't know what an Croyer is, but the Micronauts, in fact, well, you can't see because my head would be in the way, but I picked up another one the other day. To me, that's memories and my childhood, my youth. I keep some of it, but it brings back fond memories of times gone by, of the Christmas when all the family would come over before they've all now since passed. And, it's just a glitch that dropped my sales. Well, we can't
have that problem.
We saw the talks of tariffs. And again, this is something else a lot of people don't think about. They're thinking about today and just tomorrow. But I'm already, fourth quarter is on our mind right now. In January, as soon as fourth quarter technically ended, even though sales keep running, we already started planning for a new administration with potential for tariffs. So we've already rerouted funding. We've already changed the daily routine. We've already stopped. We're not listing European items that would sell overseas and all kinds of other stuff. Just to, again, I'm not going to wait till there's a problem. And I don't think anybody out there should. And even if there isn't a problem, if there isn't a problem, it means I've sold more stuff, extra stuff that I probably wouldn't have worried about, and I got extra money. Who cares? The point is, though, that with talking about sales and stuff like that, we started in January, like the first or second week in January. I already know what we're doing for Christmas. I already got RA items scheduled for Christmas. I talked to somebody who goes to a toy show and all this stuff. Even if the tariffs come into play, there's still goods that you can get. And Patreon, I've talked about some items and why we buy this and that. And RA items I do every year. I pick 2 or 3 of them. And everything is planned out ahead of time. I don't wait till sales start to skew. I don't know if you do projections on your sales day, but I project from, the second day of the month, I can project. I can add the 2 days up, and then I can divide by how many days, or multiply by how many days, and all that kind of stuff. Then divide by anyway. You can project where you should be. So I'm already trying to figure out where we're going to end up before the month's even over, and that's what I did in retail and in restaurants, and it works. There's a reason why companies do all that stuff. That's why they buy stuff a year in advance, a year and a half in advance. You got to be looking out for yourself, because there ain't anybody else around here that's going to help you. Dave and I are. Well, you're in a different position, as I am too, than a lot of people that may be watching this. I don't have the main concerns. I know you're retired. We put the quotes around that, but you've earned it. And I'm sure the way it sounds, you're doing very well for yourself. So the smart people do it. That's why I wondered why, when in the last 10 years ago, we'd see people with Mercedes going to Goodwill. They got money, but they got it because they're penny pinchers,
Yep.
and I've always been a penny pincher to me. So I don't care if people make fun of it or not. We've done well at it, and I can show it. I don't care if something's used. It doesn't matter to me. That's why reselling is so cool to me. Clothing or whatever. Who cares? I don't buy certain things used, but I'd never buy a used mattress or anything. But
No,
you know what I mean.
right? Yeah, but that's a whole nother issue. Yeah.
So, yeah. So I mean, the drop sales happens every summer, and I know there's so many people that wait till it's almost summer and they're going, "Wow, my sales are dropped." You should have been working on that. January, February. You should have been figuring out what you plan to do. If you've been on for a couple of years, you got sales data to go by. You sort your categories. You see where you make the most money at. You push those. Anyway, there's so much stuff you could do ahead of time that if you're not doing that, you might be taking that 9-to-5 job. I'm not towards John Doe or anything, just in general. A lot of people, I know people. I've been on a show with somebody who's now going to a 9-to-5 job, and I've met folks who are reselling who gave up on it. I've had people on Patreon who just couldn't make it, and that's not an insult to anybody. It's tough. I have a reason to do it. I don't want to ever work for somebody, but if it's just money to you, it might be a little harder. You might not be as motivated. And Dave likes it. I like it. I'm passionate. I love this stuff. I could live in it. I like the smell of going into an old, 1700s house, or how books smell, and
I do.
toys, even a toy box from the 70s or 80s. I mean, I like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I like the old dirty garage or basement with just stuff packed in there because it's like it's like Indiana Jones. There's a treasure hunt. You got to climb the stack and see what you can find.
And it's funny you were saying that about the tariffs because behind the paywall today, I did a video saying, should you buy foreign language books, magazines, et cetera, et cetera. And basically I said, understand that your sales may be a little lower right now because of world events. If you go into it understanding that, maybe now wouldn't be the right time to go spend, $2 a piece buying 500 Paris Match magazines. Might not be the proper time to do that. Unless you are in a situation where you have the extra money and you've got the space and you don't care, and that's what our show always says as well, is there's not a right answer or wrong. I'm not going to tell you, no, don't buy it. I'm going to tell you don't pay $20 a piece on them. But if you can get a cheap deal on them, it all depends upon your own situation. If you are barely making rent, do not buy that. That would not.
Stay away from anything that's going to give you a hard time selling it. You need quick flip, no long tail. Again, that's another thing. You can adjust long tail versus, quick flip stuff if you have to. Don't sell individual items if they're not worth selling to begin with. Set yourself a bottom line. Bulk them together in lots. You would be surprised. Lots sell just fine.
Yeah. Oh, no, we do appreciate that, Uriah. No, you're right. The lots do. This one, we're going to talk about a bad eBayer here for a moment.
I've got some of those.
I don't know if you saw this story or not. $600,000 was seized from a Michigan eBay seller selling counterfeit airbags. Talk about stupid.
That's on local news.
I'm sure he doesn't have the proper liability insurances, and you're selling counterfeit airbags. One of those doesn't work right, and I got that from eBay. That's coming back on that guy. That's insane. That's insane.
Like you saying, coming back on somebody, that's another thing too. With feedback is so important these days because there's so many crooked people out there in sites and stuff that will send crap items or they don't grade them properly or stuff. It makes a lot of us look bad too when people do stupid things. It gives the whole reselling business, a bad name, in my opinion. That's why I try to strive to make sure people, I'm trying to help. You don't want to listen, don't listen. But, if you screw up your feedback, you have to pay more on eBay on top of it if you mess up.
Absolutely. Per The Economist magazine, since 2021, there's been a 5.8% reduction in sneaker sales, and there are fewer sneakerheads out there. The Travis Scott Nike, the counterfeits that they make on those are 99% accurate, as they're coming from the same plants as.
I was just going to say, same factory. They've got all the molds, the templates, the cutting patterns, and everything, and stitch material and all that.
Yep. And then Sotheby's just had a sneaker auction, and they went below estimate. So
I got Rockports, a pair of Rockports, and I bought a pair at a store that literally, I know they are original Rockports. They're the real deal. Everything about it was real. And then I ordered a pair off Amazon, which said it was from Rockport's own site. I contacted Rockport when the label on the tongue of the shoe came off, and instead of saying where they say it was made, underneath it was a label that said a totally different country. So that would be against import rules because you say you've relabeled the tongue with the new sticker, right? They couldn't even tell me if it was really one of theirs or not. This is Rockport's main company.
Wow.
So, and this was I did a video. I talked about even a video because that was, I have feet issues. I've got no, anyway, I'm not going to get into all the detail, but the point was that I value the shoes and it wasn't, they weren't, I couldn't prove they were even legit. That's how bad that kind of stuff is too.
And per New York Times, global art sales fell by 12% last year. So kind of interesting.
I think people aren't spending the money like they were after the pandemic and stuff. I think some people soured on some of their investments, didn't go the way they wanted because Wall Street pulled out of the traditional markets.
A 1913 Liberty Head nickel. Did you see that they found a sixth one of those? Only 5 of them for no one? And they just found a sixth one. Yeah, they just.
I know they're extremely scarce, and I think there's one in the what's that coin collection? Maybe the Smithsonian has one.
Okay, yeah, there's 5 of them total that were known. They just found a sixth. It was some grandmother had passed, and she had it upstairs like in a tin.
Oh, and it was just thrown in with a bunch of other coins.
Now it was set aside, but it was up in a tin upstairs, and the family found it. And I wonder if this had any value, and brought it into the coin dealer, and he's like,
$2 million.
Let's see if this is real or not. But hey, God bless the coin dealer. How many people would have said, "Yeah, it's a couple $100 and bought it"? There are people out there like that, and
there's a lot of people. I hate to keep saying that, but man, I run into people that are. I've watched somebody try to rip off an estate sale before. Now I shut my mouth because I didn't want to cause a big scene, but it despises that kind of stuff.
No, absolutely. A 1,000-year-old kiddish cup valued at up to $5 million is going to be auctioned by Sotheby's this fall, marking the oldest known Jewish artifact from the Middle Ages.
Huh.
So amazing when you see stuff like that. And then I know Don and I were talking before the show, and Don said he's saving up some money. He's hoping that the imports don't hit him. He's going to be going to China because the Chinese court has ordered a sale. 100 tons of live crocodiles are up for auction, no delivery, $550,000 starting. So I know you were planning on buying those, Don, and you got the land over there, and that's why you wanted the new land for 500 or 100 tons of live crocodiles. How many crocodiles is that?
When we were in Florida, there was we used to hunt in a place called Dade's Massacre. There was Fort Dade out there, and the family that owned it used to be a survey business. They allowed us to metal detect. We found all kinds of cool buttons, but their family owned an alligator farm, and we went over to the alligator farm and got to walk around. We metal detected there because it was on the other side of the battlefield, which was a state park at that point. Probably still is, but anyway, I've been on those kind of farms, man. They're kind of a little nerve-wracking, I should say.
So you're saying you're not going to buy 100 tons? Breaking news. The auction.
No, I won't buy
crocodiles. What if they were alligators?
You would have import would be you couldn't import them.
I know.
I would probably say there'd be some, and you couldn't sell them on eBay because of the type of material it is. I would bet you.
Well, no, they're live. They're live.
Well, I mean, people are going to probably buy them for the meat and for the what are they going to do with that many crocodiles? They'd have to buy them, and they'd probably sell the leather, the hides from them. Because I've got somewhere around here, I've got my grandmother's crocodile purses. I even have a seal fur coat somewhere from the 1920s around here. Can't sell it because it's against the law to sell it, but I just hated to just discard it because it's neat still.
Well, I'm thinking you should, off the record, nobody's listening, you should buy those crocodiles and try to sneak them in your trousers.
Yeah.
You do see every once in a while stories about people trying to sneak exotic things in. And I'm thinking if you were trying to sneak 100 tons of crocodiles in, they would have a story. You'd go viral.
Well, Marky, when she was a little kid, had a baby alligator. They lived literally on the bayou in Mississippi. So she had a baby alligator. And the noise is the only reason her mom caught her on it. Because they make a little chirpy. Right. I wouldn't even want to begin to make it, but it's like a little... One of our dogs makes a similar noise when he's wanting attention. So, I mean, it's a real weird noise, and that gave it away.
It's funny.
I wouldn't have one in the house, but
No, no. I'm as likely to have 100 tons of them as I am to have one. I got to be honest. About the same chance.
We had a newt and stuff like that in a fish tank for years and years. But, I like that. Amphibians are a different story.
That story just made me laugh. Are you on TikTok?
No, I'm not on TikTok. I have an Instagram. I don't even use the Instagram. I barely go into Facebook or any of that stuff. To me, social media has turned so toxic these days. I mean, it bothers me, and we've got some. Anyway, I don't want to get into family oriented stuff, but the whole aspect on even Facebook, I do it because it's a necessity to some extent, but I really don't like social media at all these days. It's gotten toxic. I know people keep telling me money and all, but TikTok, I'm not into it. It's too much Wild West for me, kind of. It just doesn't do anything for me. I'm not interested, I guess. I'm not the fact that I could make money on it doesn't draw me enough to want to do it, I guess. Hey, Mike, just speaking of Mike.
Yep, there he is. We were talking about him earlier. His ears were burning and he showed up. I actually did just sign up for TikTok. I have a idea that I want to try with comic books and sports cards over there as far as content. And so I was doing some research today as to what is on there, and nobody is doing what I want to do, which is either a good thing or a bad thing. I haven't decided yet. So I'm going to do a little more research on it, and I'm going to start doing TikTok videos probably next week, I think. So I'm doing research at this point.
The only thing I would say is they could ban the whole app in the next 90 days would be the only concern I would have, too. I mean, it's just something I would be.
Yep. But we're going to give it a try. Why not? It's an idea that I had for the YouTube channel, and I never gotten anywhere with it over on YouTube. So I said, maybe I'll try with it somewhere else. I just haven't made the time for it is what it comes down to. So I'm like, we'll start somewhere fresh and see if we're able to do so. Who knows on that? But it's getting a little late, Don. I didn't mean to keep you this long here.
I don't have any plans tonight. This is my relaxed day. I'm going to go out and see what my son finished on the ceiling out there, but that's about it.
That's good. So what? My inner Gen Z. There we are. Absolutely. So what's the good word out there with reselling? I mean, I know you're doing well on it. You're doing the buttons, the trade cards.
We sell pretty much everything. We just picked up comic books. I got toys in house. I got a whole bunch of, stamps are I got more stamps than anything, I would say. I probably got 5 million stamps. We've been buying books for years. We might start listing some of those. I don't know. We've got trade cards. I sell a lot of records. We sell, I don't know, $800-900 lately in 78s a month. Maybe a little more than that right now. I just sold a Boogie Woogie Bugle Boy from Abbott Costello's for $150 just before the show. So, I love 78, so we do a lot of those. I've got 500,000 records. Buttons we're going to be listing some more. I think we listed some more last night, actually, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, I whatever I can get my hands on, if it's in my wheelhouse, I don't really go much out of it these days because I can get so much of the stuff I know so well. And I know more than the people I'm buying from in every case. That's the best way to do this. So I don't have the need, at least right now, to jump out of my wheelhouses. We do a lot of RA, though, lately, too. We've been doing fairly well. I don't know if I had a video on that one in my Patreon, though. We've made, in just a matter of a couple hours, $700 off of Amazon on some Walmart items. So I was really surprised. But and then I got free ones.
Let me ask you that, because you're raising a question, and we were going to do a show about it at some point. How important do you think it is to know more than the person selling to you?
Oh, that's the biggest, for what I do, that's the biggest aspect. Because most of the time they have no idea what they got. I'm not trying to rip anybody off, don't get me wrong, but I've spent a lifetime at this to, know what the items are. And knowing more than the person selling it to, I can go and cherry pick a dealer. That's what we do. We cherry pick. If you go to a flea market, you're cherry picking some other person who's bought it to resell. And we're cherry pickers. That's what a good reseller is in my book. You or me, both of us, I'm sure, could go into most antique places and not even use our phone at all.
Right.
And I think that's key too, because we actually know it. I don't like a lot of YouTubers. I don't have to look up everything.
Right.
I know I'm going to buy it or I'm not going to buy it. if it's a huge lot and it's some rare item, yeah, I need to look that up because I haven't seen it before. But, a lot of the stuff you or I probably buy are routine items, I would say. Again, I don't have to stick to my wheelhouse, but why would I go anywhere else? Because we're doing so well. This is what works for me. I never picked what I'm selling. It picked me. I was able to get it. It started to sell. I learned more. Behind me, between these two shelves, there's $2,000 worth of books just for buttons. I've invested a long time of doing this, and wherever the money goes. I didn't pick buttons. I never used to collect buttons. I never used to collect well, as a kid I did, but then I gave it up. But as of late, I got into Vampirella, the Metal Man, and the stuff that I liked as a kid, and anyway, I know I'm rambling again, but that's just me.
Yeah, the reason, first thing about the phones, I tend to find the phone helps me not buy things. Because a lot of times I'll be at a sale and I'll see something and I'm on the fence about it. And then I look it up and I go, okay, they're asking 25 on it. It's worth 60. Okay, I'm not buying that. And that's where the phone actually saves me money.
If I don't know, of course, I'm going to look it up. If I think there's profit, as I said, if it's something I don't see very often or I haven't seen before and I think there might be some good money, I'm going to look it up. Like at Goodwill. What did I look up? I didn't look up the photo
right.
I didn't look up the big items that we got.
Yep.
I didn't look up anything, but I got I don't want to spoil it. It's going to be in a video, but I looked up one thing because it was something I'd never seen. I knew the company name, but I didn't know at all what I had, what right. It was for sure. So, I very rarely, I don't go to look at clothing. I don't look at shoes. I don't look at any of that stuff. I do buy leather jackets if they fit me. I don't give a hoot if I ever sell them at all, but if they fit me and I like the looks of them, I'll buy leather jackets. I think I got 75 of them now that all fit me. It's the only thing that I'm anal retentive about how they are, how they fit, how they look, all that stuff. But, in the big scheme of things, I don't know. I'm rambling again.
Well, it's what I'm finding with, and we source differently. We both have pickers, certainly, but a lot of my pickers are dealers. They know they can wholesale stuff out to me. And a lot of times they do know what stuff's worth, but they don't care because it isn't necessarily what they deal. And they pick stuff up on the side and they're like, look, that's $50, that's $40, that's $20. You're taking it all and you're giving me $1 a piece on it. But here, you can make money off that. And I'm like, well, yes, because I know enough as well that, yeah, I know I can make money off that as well. So that's kind of, I think a lot of times it depends on who you're buying from. Now, obviously, if I go on a house call, in fact, I've got 2 house calls Friday for books. My first question, of course, in a house call is nicely, why are you getting rid of the stuff? What is your situation? And if they're like, we got to get this house on the market by the end of the month, we need these books gone, then it's a different answer than, well, I want to prune the collection. And it's a different offer because if we want to prune the collection, they're going to want more money. We want the books gone. What do you got here? $50, I'll take them all. Look through top of one box and get them all out of there once I verify that they're not all John Grisham. Nothing against John Grisham, of course.
Well, you pull up a good point here. Now, locally, I buy 78s, and I get people that come to me right off the bat before they even list them many times. And what I have to ask is, where'd you get them from? Why do you have these 78s? How long have you had them? Are you reselling them?
Yep. Because
I'm telling you, like 9.5 times out of 10, I've looked at them, or they're resellers and already picked all the good stuff out. So, I didn't used to do this, but these days, if I get a bunch of 78s, I trash all the ones that are worth nothing. Because if I don't, I'll see them again. And I hate to say that, but everybody knows, at least a certain group of people know to call me. And I get irritated, so I started throwing them away, literally, because one person will get them after me. He'll take some out and do whatever he does, and then somebody else will get them, and that other person will put a big ad like, hey, I got all these 78s. And the worst part is when they lie where they got them from or what their business is. I always say, if like it's on Facebook Marketplace, I do source off there occasionally. I always got to look at what else they're selling, because if they're selling other records and other things and they got 20, 30, 40, 50 listings, they're a reseller. They're already picked through it. Anybody who says it's unsearched is probably lying to you. Honestly, especially if they're like a postcard dealer and they say unsearched postcards, but they got 10,000 postcards in their store, they're not going to spending all that time on those postcards. They're not going to, no disrespect, I'm not trying to offend anybody, but they're not going to go through and not look for like a $500 postcard. That Tahoe postcard sitting in there, the RPPC lounge photo or something, they're going to look through it. I'm dumbfounded that they wouldn't,
99 times out of 100. The only exception would be if they literally just bought it and you walk up to them, they go, I don't know, I just bought the stuff, I paid $500, give me $750. Like sometimes you do run into that at shows. You can run into that at shows.
Because people buy them, they'll buy them at the show, they'll meet somebody ahead of the show, and then they'll have I've done that. I bought stuff at an auction when somebody they bought a lot. They had something that they were buying the lot for, but I wanted something else that they didn't give a hoot about. And I bought stuff while we're sitting there waiting for other lots to come up. So there's nothing wrong with any of that. Whatever it takes, and the biggest thing, like with why Goodwill was so good, because I asked questions and I asked the manager this and that question. A lot of stuff you do, if you just ask a question, open your mouth, you can do far better in business. I hate to tell you, but a lot of people are afraid, like, to ask, is that for sale, or who cares? You're never going to see them if you're at a garage sale again, probably. Right. So ask them, even if it doesn't look like it's for sale. I've asked stuff that, was mounted to a wall and they let me have it. Or at an estate sale, I've screwed stuff off of walls I don't know how many times.
Yeah. Well, was it you that had the video? I think it was about the pencil sharpeners.
Oh, I take those. Oh, yeah, I've made a lot of money. I don't know if I'm pretty sure I had one with pencils and pencil sharpeners, but I've taken the old school pencil sharpeners from school. You used to have to screw them onto the wall. Yeah. You remember the kind you had to crank?
I had a basement like that. Yeah.
I've got one too. I got one because they're awesome pencil sharpeners, and you can change the pattern on them too on some of the older ones. I like the old ones because they're almost like mechanical art. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like I've got an airbrush from like 1898, and I love the thing. I mean, it looks kind of a little beat up because some of the finish is gone, but man, the technique and the quality and the feel and it blows my mind. I guess I'm fascinated that they had airbrushes in 1898.
Oh, don't worry, Stone Throw. Mentioned down below, I can't wait till it gets easier. It does. It definitely does.
Yeah, 30 years in.
Well, it does get easier though, because
I know I'm just joking, but yeah.
Well, a lot of it depends about what you're into too. I don't know what you're into, Stone Throw, but you'll begin to see the same things over and over again. And the most valuable thing, and it's the same thing with the phone, is knowing what not to buy, especially if you're into something like books, because every year, I don't know how many books are published. There are millions of books out there. You can't go through and look up every single book when you're at a sale. You just cannot do it. So over time, you begin to say, yeah, I've seen that, seen that, seen that, seen that, seen that, seen that, seen that. Oh, I haven't seen this one before. Oh, this looks to be, and you begin to learn things. I'll just use books as an example. Local history, small publisher. You begin to pull some of the
better Press.
What one?
Eaton Press.
Oh, I just got some the other day. So I've got those sitting over. I got a signed first edition sitting over Eastern Press. You also will pull things that a lot of the other dealers pass by, such as the Hemingway, such as the Steinbeck. The other people pass those by because they look at it and go, this doesn't have a jacket, and they put it back. Some of those early editions still, you'll get you $40-$50 out of them, and you're paying $1. And I go on the second day of a sale, and I find them, and they're common. You just got to learn a little bit about how to tell an early edition, how to tell a book club, how to tell. But you learn that kind of stuff, and you're like, oh, why did nobody? And it's actually funny when you go to the sale, you actually don't really have to look too hard for the Hemingway. Usually they're sitting on top of the other books because some other dealer picked them out, looked, said, no, I don't want that. It's not a first with the jacket, and put it back. You're like, I can pay $1 for that. And, easy way to pick up 20, 30, $40 off that dollar book that, and they've taken the time to put it up on top for you, which is very, very nice of them.
There's another aspect to it, books that I've always been fascinated to. Just the date the book was printed, I can sell a book if it was printed in the right 1861 to 1865. Anything pre-1800 is almost a given. You're going to get $30-$40 for it, even if you just put it in the colonial or the military Revolutionary War section. You're going to get somebody who's a reenactor, who's a fan of the whole period, and they're going to buy it just because of the date on the book. Who cares about the subject? I've learned that lesson years and years ago. Bible, religious books, all that stuff. The date on it means a lot in my personal book, because we've sold just junky stuff for, way more than anybody else because we put it in, Revolutionary War versus just an old book. People just want it. It just depends. And then to sort down stuff on eBay, you've got to specialize it and narrow it down to get rid of all the junk. So by the time they narrow it down, my book shows up if they're a Revolutionary War collector, whatever the case may be.
Well, another thing too, and I'm certain you're aware of this. I was actually at Brimfield, as a matter of fact, where I have met you at before. And there was a person buying books from a dealer and said, how much are the books? I don't know. I'm going to make a pile of them. Can you work me out a deal? Yeah. I want that book. And the dealer's like watching them as they're picking the books and like, you don't seem to have any theme that you're after. It's not like you're buying all the history books. It's not like you're buying, she goes, nope, I just want books that have nice red spines because I'm decorating and we need red spines for this. And so she picked out 12 books or 15 books that are red spines. He's like, I don't know, $10. So she was very, very happy. She got a lot of old books with the red spines, and people do that as well. They'll sit there and they'll bunch together a bunch of common books, but because they have the same color spine on them, they're able to sell them.
Interior decorators.
Yep, absolutely. That's what the lady was doing. She needed them for a party. She had a
we work with. There's an interior decorator here that we know, and we met him from the antique building salvage company introduced us.
Yep, and it's that's one of those things, and we had on there, and I'm sure you probably have it on a loop playing in the background back there. We had PSCN Creations on, who is a junk journalist, and it was one of the best interviews we ever did because it completely opened my eyes to things that you could sell that just I never thought of, because the junk journalists are off in their own world and they are absolutely buying things that the collectors have no interest at all in. But
yeah, I sell junk journal stuff too. Those are lot material almost exclusively when we sell something like that, but they do very well.
Yeah, they do very
well. Videos on YouTube with junk journal creators and stuff.
Yep, and at some point I got to reach back out to PSCN Creations and have her on again, because again, that was very, very eye-opening. Just the things that before I was aware of, and I do junk journal auctions over on Whatnot, and I'm very happy with the outcome of them. In the old days, they would have been things I can't throw stuff out, so they would have been in a box somewhere, because I'm like, somebody someday is going to want this. I don't want to throw it out. Well, now I give it to the junk journal people. They're happy because I come up with a lot of good ephemera for them.
Yeah, it's all paper too. It's easy to ship, easy to store. It's stuff that you can get in. If you're like me, I don't know what you get in, but we might get 100 pounds of paper a week, maybe 150 or something like that on an average week. Maybe 20 pounds of that is stuff that I probably wouldn't mess with. So if we can't get print ads or something out of it, or lot material, that's about the best thing you can do without just throwing it away or trying to send it back to the auction. And where we live now, it's not worth me going over to the auction unless I got like a carload of records or something,
Right. Yep. So and I'm very, very happy. And anybody who watches the channel knows that it's opened up a whole world to me. And I'm actually now, when I'm outsourcing, and we mentioned this as well on the show, the really nice thing about it is because I tend to buy from dealers who aren't tapped into the junk journal. Oh, geez, you got this. This stuff's kind of damaged. Yeah, I know. Just buy that whole box. Give me $5. Get it out of here. Because they're thinking, and meanwhile, I'm like, that's the better stuff because it's damaged and I can sell it.
I might even have done a video like 4 or 5 years ago on junk journals, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe you did. I know Mike had mentioned that you've done a video about a lot of the different things that could be.
I think I've done one on that, if I'm not mistaken. We've been buying stuff for junk journals because it's right up my wheelhouse. People love old tickets to stick in them and stuff. So if you ever get like rolls of, the old cheap carnival tickets and packs of stickers and stuff like that, you can do pretty good. Because I mean, literally, if have you ever seen one in person, a real nice junk journal with all kinds of, just a big thick one? I mean, they're actually pretty neat, especially if it's somebody who's. We saw one that reminded me of Tim Burton. My wife likes them too.
Okay,
Marky likes them too. So it was interesting. It was neat. They actually drew some of the stuff. They painted in it. They altered art. It was more than just a junk journal. It was altered art as well, because I used to set up at art shows and stuff when we lived in Florida. We went to West Palm Art Show and the festival and everything. And you'll see stuff like that at a place like that. I mean, and honestly, some of the stuff, like a junk journal, may take way more time. I can't believe they can sell it that cheap sometimes, because, man, if I sat there and figured out the time they invested into this stuff, not counting the material, I mean, to me, it would be more work than it would be worth the effort. But I like it because I like doing the outsider stuff. I like the weird stuff. I like it piques my interest.
When you were mentioning the old carnival, admission tickets and everything, those are really easy to find because when you look on them,
that's why I said that. Those are low lot. My whole business is based on the stuff that no one else wanted. We figured out where we could make money because we didn't have a lot of money. It was cheap. With the cheapest stuff we get. That's why I say still stick to markets where I can get stuff dirt cheap because it doesn't matter to me. I don't care if it's damaged. I don't care if it's a little dingy or stuff. What's that show on? American Pickers, I think is what it's called. It's the rusty gold or whatever they call it. I don't watch much because vision issues, but the point being, to me, I like the stuff. I like the age. I got my Eagle One. I found my Eagle One, Mattel Eagle One from Space. I like the fact that some of it's yellowed and stuff. I've had it since I was a kid.
Yep.
To me, that adds to the whole nostalgia. I don't want a brand new one that's all shiny and new. I want the dirty, dusty one with the beat up box.
That's
how I remembered it. Yep. That's how I had it. I had it. I used it. I played with it. Biggest spaceship I had as a kid. It was just my favorite show at the time. Gary Anderson, I think, is the show maker on that one. I think he did Thunderbirds and the whole works.
Well, those coupons, as we said, are easy because if you take a look at them, they say keep this coupon. So you had no option, as a matter of fact. I've got a whole pile of them. I'm like, I don't know why I'm keeping them, other than the fact they told me I had to. They're in that little junk drawer with a couple of thumbtacks and some old rubber bands that I really need to throw out
and that thimble and
and the old baby sharpener, the old baby food jar that's got paper clips thrown in it.
Those were the days. That's my mom. People who lived through, some of the hard times know that feeling. Is my parents, my parents never made a lot of money and stuff. So my mom saved everything: rubber bands, twisties, the bag from the bread she would reuse. I mean, that's how my mom was.
Yeah, something. If you live through the tough times, you do it, and that is one thing. Not to get political, but I did have a friend that was a little concerned about all the things going on. And what I said to the person, and actually somebody else that is a picker as well, he was a resident of the state for a while for something he did wrong in his youth. And he came out, and at this point he's got multiple houses, and he's made it all from he makes me and you look lazy. Let's put it that way.
Hang on 1 second. I'm sorry.
Yep.
Come on. Mia Wallace had to come in.
He makes us look lazy. He does everything under the sun, picks and does this and does that, yada, yada, yada. And he put it best. He goes, I've been poor once. I can be poor again. I know how to be poor. And when you really think about it, we've been through the tough times. We are in better times now, but we haven't forgotten where we came from. And
I haven't forgotten.
I think that's huge. I really do. I mean, I still clip coupons. I still sit there. Mrs. Paperboy laughs because I'll go to the grocery store and the first thing I look for is the clearance section.
I see. That's I've got to stop doing that because I always do that, and I'm always thinking resell or home use or because cheap is cheap.
Yes.
And then I went to Walmart and they had cement paint. I needed cement paint. I don't need it now, but it was a third the price of new if I went to Home Depot. So I bought a bunch of gallons of paint to paint the cement around the outside of the building.
No, but absolutely though, when you have that mindset going in, you never lose that mindset. And but also the other thing too is I think that could be one of the reasons why we hustle so much is because we do remember and don't want to be back there again. And we know that, among other things, there's been luck, there's been whatever, it's been fortuitous along the way. There have been people, I know there's been a lot of people that have helped me along the way. There are a lot of people, I know it may be a little different where you are, but up here, there is so much cooperation among all the resellers up here.
I wished.
Yeah,
it's cutthroat up here.
It's not at all
stuff right out in front of you and grab it and try to run up and pay for it before you can do anything. I've set stuff aside and I had another reseller talk them into selling it to them after I already had agreement to buy it. I hate going to estate sales because of that.
Yeah,
because there's so many rude people up here.
Seeing up here, I'll get texts on the phone from another seller. Hey, you got to go to the sale. Hey, you got to buy this. Hey, there's a great sale over here. Because, we all help each other out. And if I find a good sale, I'll contact. Now, of course, I've been to the sale before. It's not, it's not totally out of the good of my heart, but, I've been to the sale, but I know there's stuff there that they're going to want. So I'm like, hey, I'll throw them the favor. And at some point they'll tell me about a sale as well. And everybody helps each other up here. And it's, there's probably 10, 12 of us total that deal in the stuff that I deal in. There's really not very many of us up here. And that is one.
I was just going to say, around here, they show up the night before, the day before, if they publish it. None of the people publish dates anymore, and they'll keep tracking who had a garage sale last year so they know which house to go to if they see an ad this year. I mean, it's gotten to be where the really good sales, the people get in before anybody else, and all the good stuff's not even at the sale anymore, or the real estate or the estate companies that are running the sales already have some deal worked out. A lot of the stuff in there isn't even from the sale. We went to the auctions where they're seeding the storage auction. I mean, it's gotten really bad where I don't know if it's like that everywhere. I didn't see this up in Michigan, truthfully. I didn't see this level of every man for himself up here. And that's part of like what it seems like with a lot of the people, I don't know, on YouTube with the videos and stuff. And just it just seems too much. Everybody wants something from you and the money. It's all about, again, everybody needs money. Don't get me wrong, but money isn't the reason I do this. In my personal honesty, it's the freedom I get from it. I sure, I'm doing good, but that's just a consequence of what I'm doing. I want to protect and provide for my family, and I despise the money grubbing. I got to have everything at the sale, so you can't get it. It aggravates me.
Yeah, see, and it's not like I should keep my mouth shut. Everybody's moving up to New York.
Yeah, I'd say at Michigan, it's not like that. I've been to sales. I know people who run estate companies. Me and Mark used to hang out with a couple. We still see them occasionally, but we live so far away now that But they run an estate company. We've known a bunch of the people up there and stuff, and it's not like it is here. I don't know what the difference is. I don't get it. I don't understand why people are like. It wasn't like that in Florida either. I hooked up people. I got the biggest resin sci-fi model collection of my entire life in Florida because some other dealer hooked me up with it.
Right. I wonder, where you live at in general, your general
Not
area.
A lot of money locally.
It's an older area though too, which Rochester's an older area also. There is a lot of stuff up here, and that could be part of it too. That there's so much stuff up here that people are just like whatever. Nobody can handle the volume.
The old part of town where you would think is like the poor section of town nowadays. They've rented out the houses like Old West End and stuff. Not all of it. There's some really lovely houses down there, but where the old money in town isn't there anymore where it used to be.
Mm-hmm.
Stranahans, the main company or the main rich people in town used to be the Stranahans. Their estate now is a state park, and my father went to school with his son. They created Champion spark plugs.
Oh wow.
That's who the Stranahans were and stuff. But anyway, there's not a lot of money up here. And I relate it to the fact that, this area is semi-depressed overall compared to like, if I go to Michigan, there's a little more money in certain areas. That's why, like, if I go to a thrift store or something, I'm very selective. There's only 4 I'll ever go to anymore. And they're in specific neighborhoods, and they're neighborhoods that I do better in for various reasons. And that's the biggest take I would say is that, that's why everybody's cutthroat, because the supply of good stuff is limited around here. Clothing, you'd be living on the street if you try to live off clothing around me. It's just not here. Even in the thrift stores when 10 years ago it wasn't there.
Let me ask you, you may not know the answer to this, but if you went on estatesales.net, who is not a sponsor, but should they wish to be, how many estate sales within a 50-mile radius would there be, do you think?
I don't know anymore, but there used to be 2 or 3 a week on average that I would go to.
That could be part of it. Rochester probably has 7 to 10 in a week. And because Buffalo's within that 50, Buffalo has about 7 to 10. So you're talking 15 to 20 estate sales alone.
Well, there's probably 5 or 6 more that don't list on estates. That's the website. I mean, I go to the website too. I mean, I know it very well. It's saved on my favorites as well. But I think a lot of them list locally. And there's one company now, I won't give out the name, but they do they'll first run an auction, like an online auction for the estate sale. Then when after that's done, then they'll open up an estate sale so that all the good stuff's cherry picked before you get there. Again, that's their business model. Whatever makes their boat float. you got a chance to get it either way, whether it's auction or at the estate sale. But it just depends on what they're doing these days. And I know a lot of them run their own auctions these days. I mean, she's got I don't want to give her name up, but it's a female, obviously. She's got a auctioneer's license, which I've literally seriously been talking about getting into, so that I can't get in any trouble. If you live in Ohio, you can't sell more than $10,000 of merchandise at all. Anything over that, you can't run any more auctions. You could have some legal issues with it because they passed a law. And I know there's still people. I brought it up with you over whatnot, if you remember, because I know it's the law. I called. I just run through the Farming Bureau because that's who runs auctions. Because the farming industry was the founding of auctions in this country, going back to, at least in our statewide, going back to the 1700s. They used to be published in the newspapers. I've got them. I've got newspapers from 1780s and 90s that have auctions for farm animals. So that's where the law comes into. So I'd love to get the license, even though it's it's going to take a couple weeks, but that's my goal anyway.
Well, there are a couple. I know Caring Traditions is one, and there's a couple of other. They're franchises that do that. They will put everything up, and I think there's Max Sold. That's another one. That's another franchise, I believe, that they'll sit there and they'll sell your stuff for you at auction type deal as well. And those I don't even look at. Those I'm not even counting. I'm talking actually physical estate sales. There's probably
that's what I'm saying. At the end of the auction, they'll set up a physical estate sale afterwards as well. They don't. Okay. It's not like announced like they're the same thing, but that's what they do. Because I know the people that run some of these, and I've done this for so long. I've run into the estate dealers for years. We're talking 25, 30 years. I've known some of these people. I mean, I don't know their kids or nothing, but they know my name and I know their first names and stuff, and we know what they know what I buy, and I pretty much know the areas and how much their spending is by the type of estate sales they get. Estate sale companies, you can always tell the type. Well, around here, I can tell the type of estate sale it's going to be by who's running it. I don't know if you ever noticed that, but you can always tell because, like the new ones getting into it, they'll buy the lesser value, they'll go into the lesser ones or certain neighborhoods that other high end ones won't touch.
Well, it's funny.
The ones they're going to make set amount of money ahead of time. They don't, or they'll go in and say there's not enough here, and then it'll end up going to the bottom, the third lower tier of the ladder of estate sales. I mean, I've run estate sales a couple of times, so I mean, I understand the whole business, but around here, it's hierarchy too. It's almost like a clique, a group that, at least in my area, not again, Michigan and other places, I haven't run into this, but around here.
One thing that goes on up here is some of the estate sale companies will pass the sales along to the lesser places. In other words,
because they won't make their quota or whatever. They have employees.
Like, we won't do it. We'll have somebody else give you a call, and then they call one of the lesser ones and say, "Hey, you probably should need to check this out." They help each other out on that as well.
They might get a kickback on it though, just because I give a finder's fee for stuff. So I mean, who cares if they do? That's up to them. But just there might be a motive beyond just being nice and sharing, at least around here. But that's fine because I do it. I'll give you $50 or whatever if you turn me on to something I'm going to get, even if I'm just me.
And
it's good business.
But it's funny you said that though about the higher end estate sales, because one of the top estate sale companies, of course, was the one that had that sale that I went to at the split level house. When I see her name, I'm looking at the auction. I'm saying
you're looking close at every photo to see what else. Yep, the same here. If I go to one, I'm researching it ahead of time. In the olden days, I don't go to too many estate sales, but 4 or 5 years ago, I would check whose estate it was.
Yep.
I would go looking through the obituaries and track down it. And I know people say that's awful, but if it's a military guy, a guy who ran this type of business or that type of business, there's a good chance this is there, and this is there. Because back 5 years ago, there might have been 2 or 3 estate sales in peak of summer, because most estate sales run through the summer months because winter, everything's shut down pretty much. So, you'd see what kind of estate sale it would be. My favorite were always printing company managers and stuff. And I've hit 3 or 4 of them. And we've got more of this item or that item from a place like that than anywhere in my entire life from stuff like that. Or one might have been a metal stamping. And I used to drive down to Columbus, and we were getting buttons from Pettibone, which is a company who actually was a government contractor. Guy bought out the warehouse his family did like 100 years ago. And it's been setting this warehouse. They never went up in the attic, believe it or not, for like 80 years. And I managed to get a bunch of buttons up there, still new in the not really burlap, but they're like, I don't know, like feed bags almost with the leather thing tied at the top. They're old buttons. It was all just like primo material, but that's the kind of, again, I'm rambling, but that's the kind of thing I look out for.
Well, and it's funny you say that because I've mentioned in our videos as well about estate sales. And one of these days I've been saying I've got to do a video about how to go to estate sales, because there is a whole art to going to an estate sale, from when to go to the parking to so on. There's a whole art to it. But one of the things I say too is when you're there, well, first you can learn so much about somebody's life, but pay attention to every little detail, because everything you know about that person that you pick up through looking through the estate sale, when you see something that you can't necessarily identify or date, you then have a better idea. Because I know they went to college in Columbia, 1961 through 65. Probably
see, all that information is in the obituary usually.
Right. Yep. But even if not, if you're looking around, you see the yearbooks for 61 to 65 from Columbia, they probably were there. Hey, I don't know what this is, but I bet this has something to do with the World's Fair, or I bet this has to do with, Katz's Deli, or I bet it has to do because I know they had in New York City. Or if you do see something from a restaurant with a name that could be multiple places, I'm betting this is 1960s New York City, because there's a restaurant in New York City with that name, and it was in with all the other stuff. Could they have gone out to Santa Clara? I suppose, but it doesn't make sense. And that at least gives you a good place to start your searching on stuff.
That's good too, because that's a good concept. A lot of people got to understand, because a lot of the stuff I buy, it's all interrelated. So if I buy a huge lot of stuff, it's probably all from the same area. It's probably all tied to a specific group or family or business. And that's, depending on what you're buying. If I'm buying a collection, it might be a little different story. But if I'm buying from a state, or, a picker has some hookup for me, or I've got a hookup straight person, some family contacts me straight out, it's usually tied, and they usually know where the person traveled. Like, I love military stuff from, the opening of China and Asia and all that, because there's a lot of money to be made, for one thing. And it's usually that it's all together. So even if I can't specifically date something, it's coming from the family. I know their relative was there on the Great White Fleet, or in the 1920s, or whatever the case may be. And all this stack of papers is from their trip over to China. Yep. So, it's pretty easy to establish a provenance to it. It's pretty easy. Photos. I've got a ton of photos from China, hundreds of them up that I've had. I've sold $15,000, $20,000 worth of China photos, just photos of China taken by some rando person, usually a U.S. sailor coming back, because that's who was able to get there at that point. So, that's the type of thing. It's all from the same area. It's all from the same person. It's like provenance that you don't have to fight for. You don't have to ask too much information, because you know where this guy went. And if like I want to find out even further, I can just request his military record. I'll pay the whatever it is, and usually the $35 or $40, whatever it is nowadays, it's worth my time. Right. Again, people, you gotta go for the extra information, because like IDing a photo or IDing something, I can buy stuff from dealers because they don't want to spend the time to research what it is. It doesn't say what it is. The photo I got that I sent you a photo of, it doesn't say what it is. There's no name, and no one, a regular person, is not going to have any idea what they're going to do, how you're going to sell it, what you're going to do with it. And that's, if you can spend that extra 2 minutes or less figuring it out, you're going to make the money. Right. That's the attention to details you need to do to make this succeed. That's what I can tell you, because that's why I'm here right now, because that's how much I go into the details. It's all about putting that title on the eBay listing, and don't miss the thing that makes it expensive. A lot of people don't put the most important thing in the title, and they wonder why it's not selling. I've directed people, hey, they asked me, why isn't this sold? I said, well, you're missing this word. People have sent me words, said, hey, this kind of dog. I had a mug, and it was some real weird kind of dog. I had no idea what kind of dog it was. And somebody said, hey, it's this kind of dog. You put that in the title, and you're going to sell it. 2 or 3 days later, after I changed the title because of that, it's sold for full price. And again, once in a while, I'll give somebody some advice. Say, hey, you got it priced wrong. And I've had some people get offended, like I'm being nasty to them, but I'm trying to help them. Yeah. They don't get dinged on eBay for false advertising or something. But I gave up on helping like that. But
you help us all, Don, and that's the important thing over here.
I've had some people get nasty over stuff lately too, and I'm like, whatever. I can only give you the
Look, I
information.
apologized.
Not you, Dave.
I apologize. We've kept on far too long over here. I definitely do appreciate him coming on the show. Down below, we do have a link over there. He's got a wonderful, wonderful channel. Do check him out over there. He's got a YouTube membership. He's got Patreon. I've learned an awful lot from him. I've met him in person multiple times. Now his car's broken down every time I say I'm new.
Yeah, no. You know why I'm not traveling now.
I'm busting your chops a little bit.
We had a medical emergency with one of our kids, and I don't go far from home since November.
Right. Yeah.
So, and that's
at some point. And I know the other thing too was Don and I were actually talking. One of these summers we are going to get together socially when I head on over to that area. It's amazing how fast the summers fill up. It really truly is. And I know that I do things a little differently than you do. As far as you source differently than I do. I tend to go to the shows. I've got Madison Bachville, I've got Allentown, now I've got that ephemera fair, I've got Springfield, and of course the things happen at the same time every year. And now I'm looking and I'm going, wow, I've got something in February, I got something in March, I got 2 things in April, I got 3 things in May, I've got, and it's just rapidly filling up because I'm kind of expanding where I'm going to. And I'm feeling a lot more comfortable when I'm buying things as well. And I do wish that you did travel a little more because I would absolutely have loved to have gone to ephemera fair with you. I will tell you, and I don't feel any shame in it. I walked into it. I had to walk out after about 20 minutes and just recalibrate because it was that overwhelming. There was that much good stuff there. As I think I told you, you see once in a lifetime stuff, and the guy's got 5 different once in a lifetime next to each other. One of the great things, and you would probably know better than I would what this is worth, but I went to a dealer, and I've mentioned this before on the show.
Yeah, you're going to show something today too.
Oh, that was the yearbook.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Yep. So I went to the show, and they had the stuff underneath glass. They're good stuff. And then they had the boxes. It was one of those you could walk in. It wasn't just you had the boxes up front. You could walk into their booth, and they had stuff all around. And they had boxes in the back with their common stuff. And at the front of the one box was a cabinet card of Geronimo. Any idea at all what that's worth?
Is it real?
I would say yes. I mean, it looked real. I picked it up. I looked at it. It looked to be real. Yeah.
I would say the only way I'll trust a photo anymore these days is the blacklight test.
Okay.
I've got a Custer at home. I even did a video on it. I got a Custer here that Patreon sent me that looks as good as gold on the photo. And I even told her that if it's real, it's the blah, blah, worth this and that. She sold it and got returned. And she sent it to me. And I literally looked at it. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like one of the best. The image itself is real, or is a modern day photo, right? The cart, Mia. I'm sorry. Hang on one second. Stop. No. You're being a little turd. No. But the card is a real card. They stripped the card off, found it the same size as the real photo, and basically took a dollar photo. And the only way is there's a little line at the bottom, which sometimes when they're gluing the photo onto the cabinet card, it slides a little bit. I've got hundreds of them here. Even I've got presidents and Garfield, all kinds of stuff. And literally, without the black light, I would have never known. And then just the other day, and this one blew me away. They're taking, and I know if some of you, a cat sometimes, Mia. I'm sorry, she's trying to get into one of my boxes. I knew I should have picked it up. I'm sorry. Sometimes cats have a mind of their own. But anyway, I got a tintype I was looking at, and I was going to buy it. I pulled it out of the case because I never buy any tintypes, Daguerreos, any Ambrose, nothing without pulling it out of the case. It was a modern day tintype of a Civil War soldier.
Really?
The face looked good as gold. I've got a friend who goes to the Civil War reenactors, and he takes tintypes. He's legit. He doesn't try to scam. Everything's new. He tells you it's new. This person took an old case and a new Civil War tintype and was trying to pawn it off for $500. I mean, I'm very cautious, even at dealers, because the Custer's brother, his brother was a general. The Custer image came from another dealer a well-known dealer. I saw the paperwork. I don't doubt it. And I just don't, I'm very cautious these days. Just like the silver industry and stuff, all the
Right.
silver bars, man, it's like 60-70% on some of the bars. I personally know somebody who's lost $10,000-$12,000 off of eBay from buying silver off of it. You know, so I don't trust anybody these days anymore with selling antiques. It's all about the money.
Right.
That's why, you know, people ruin the industry, and it bothers me because I love this stuff and I hate hearing those, like buttons. There's people recasting the buttons now, and they're casting them in you know, modern day lead, which isn't safe. And even if they're casting in pewter, they're trying to pawn them off as real, especially the Confederate ones. My gosh, I could show you a bag of them that I have here. I mean, it's just.
Well, assuming it were real.
Assuming it were real, I would send it into Heritage.
Well, she had $950 on the back of it, which I don't know if that's reasonable or not reasonable.
How big was it?
You know, that's the normal size.
That's it depends again. It depends on where it was taken, when in his life. Is it a copy?
It's later in his life, definitely. I mean, he looked older, but it was kind of.
See, the other thing is, I don't know if I can tell a first state versus a second state on some of the older cabinet cards. Now, a professional would come in there and say, well, this is a photo of a real photo. And that's what they do. Like, you'll see, I run into Lincolns, and there's nothing wrong. Nobody was conning, but they would, a photographer back then, to make extra money, would buy like a Brady image. I've seen Brady's that were copied. The Brady image, they'd take a photo of it back then in his studio, and then he'd mass produce copies of that to sell on the road. So he's supplementing his income. The copyright laws were crazy back then. There weren't any. So basically that's what you're doing. So even, again, I'm not trying to make this into a long story. There's so many other factors into a photo like that, you know, because I've seen personal stuff like that. Somebody, I'm with the Patreon group. Somebody sent me, geez, a bunch of interesting photos, and she's in another country too, in South America area. But the point, she's acquired some stuff, and if it's real, it's like primo stuff. So again, it depends on if it's an original, if it's a copy of a copy, and even if it's a copy of a copy, it might be from the exact same time frame, you know, because they couldn't get sued very easily and all that stuff. So, you know, like Garfield's wife was on trade cards forever, and she didn't give them permission to do it. They just did it. You know, Washington's on cards. None of his family gave permission to do it. There was lawsuits and arguments over Garfield's wife because they were trying to sell blood tonic for it. I mean, I've got the cards. I mean, I know that happened. So, you know, it's just too much stuff like that you got to worry about. So a photo like that would have to go to an auction to be, again, if you send it to Heritage, they're going to authenticate it, or they're not going to sell it. So that would be my personal route. I would never go about selling it personally these days, because somebody could take it. Who knows? I just don't, you know, I don't want to risk anything. It's not worth the hassle, but I would surely grab it up, not at $950. I think might be top end even. I don't know.
Right. Well, the funny thing was, it was in their common box because it wasn't underneath glass. And when they've got that sitting at the front, you know, and again, they were very good. The entire show was very good about anything you bought, they would put it in a bag from whatever dealer, and then they would have a sticker that they would put across to make sure you weren't walking off with the stuff. But that was easy enough that it could have went up somebody's sleeve. That could have walked out of the place very easy. And it was just sitting right there in a box of stuff. And I'm like, when a $950 photo is in their common area, because it's not good enough to go in the thing, I'm like, yeah, there's some pretty high-end stuff here. So it was really overwhelming. It really, truly was. There were about 60 dealers, if I remember right. You know, and again, every table you went to had better stuff than the table before. And you're just like, you know, once in a lifetime kind of stuff, because, you know, it's right outside of New York City. So these are the biggest New York City dealers setting up, as well as people coming in from, you know, the big dealer coming in from Oregon, the big dealer coming in from Washington State. They were all flying in as well, because, you know, it's a destination area. And some of them might have been coming in because the following week, I think, was the New York Book Show. So they might have been coming in for that as well. You know, we can come in, spend a week, do this show, and then do New York Book Show kind of deal. Because if you're flying in from the West Coast, that's a lot of cost to bring your inventory over.
Well, I like the little shows are good. I don't mind those kind of niche shows. I've been to button shows. I've been to military shows, and there's, you know, 30 to 50, 60 dealers at those, but they're all just military.
Yeah.
So I know what I'm getting. I know what to look for. I know half the time I know at least maybe 20% of the dealers, depending on which show I go to, or at least I know them enough to know what they sell, and if I get a deal.
Well, that kind of is an overall idea for what I was going to be doing over on TikTok, old man, in the stream. So once I get started up over on TikTok, you can come on over there, Papergoy over there. And we did have
I
another.
keep so much stuff that you can see my stuff behind Dave right now.
There you are. We're all right there. How are your eyes doing?
Not very good, but
Not good.
that's just the breaks.
Yep. It is what it is.
I don't drive at night very much these days.
Oh, I'll tell you, we always do, and then I will let you go, Don. We always do, given that you just brought it up, we always do the rambling story of the week. And I was in Myrtle Beach and had to return the car by 4:30 in the morning.
Your rental?
The rental, yep. Because we were flying out at 6. So first, I have never set the alarm on my phone before. So I set my alarm to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning. I didn't set it right. It didn't go off. But thank goodness I've got whatever anxiety issues I have. I was waking up every 20 minutes anyway. So I got up at 3:01 and said, that stupid alarm didn't go off. No, it wasn't a stupid alarm. It was user error. But that's a whole nother story. So we ended up loading up the car, driving it on back. We're all packed up, driving on back. And Myrtle Beach at 4 o'clock or 3:30 in the morning is a very, very lonely place. I think there were like 2 other cars on the road. And I'm going, there is nobody out right now. No problem at all. We got the GPS going, heading on over to the airport. Right by the airport, and you would have absolutely hated this as well, Don, with your eyes and me with my eyes. Terrible. They had construction that was swerving like that with the barrels, and now they make the barrels super reflective. So as I'm driving, all I am seeing is just reflective light, all on both sides. And I have to go through, and I'm looking going, thank God there isn't somebody else in the other lane, because I don't know where I'm going with all these barrels. It's just
night's the worst for me. So I don't the glare is just terrible at night. That's part of the reason I really don't like driving at night. I mean, I'm okay, but I'd rather be on main roads. We live out in the country. And around here, half the people drive down the middle of the road because the roads are so narrow and they don't get over to the last second. And the blur from having their headlights is just.
The other problem, to sound like an old man screaming at the clouds, is there are laws about the brightness but with the new cars, a lot of people have headlights that are far brighter than they should. And that's just standard issue on them. And when you're driving, and Mr. Magazine has that. He says that when he drives at night, a lot of people are flashing him. Well, that's a whole other story, but they're flashing him. He's got a Escalade.
That's why they're taller. The lights are up higher, and they're in the back of the mirror. I mean, we got the SUV, and it's like the big size one, and the same issue. Once in a while get people acting like I'm, high beaming them. Then I turn the high beams on, and they're like, well, they don't.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what he's like checking, going, no, not at all. And one last question, and we will let you go, Don. Best sourcing tips for a beginner. I can't find anything at garage sales, thrift stores, antique shops, at least not in bulk. Facebook Marketplace sellers want top dollar for long tail collectibles. My first, and I'm gonna jump on this first. It does make a big difference what it is that you're dealing in, but I'll just use books because that's the example that I use. Estate sales are great. Midway through or early on the second day, how much for everything? And you would be amazed how cheaply you can get the books. And books are super easy to get cheap. They want them gone, and you can end up getting books for 5 cents on a dollar. Just they want them gone. Downside of that, you have to have a lot of boxes. You have to have room to store them, and you got to be willing to carry them because a lot of times they're up in the attic. And I have carried them down through a sale out to my car and made multiple trips back and forth. But don't be afraid. Estate sales and flea markets, and the number one question you should always ask, how much for everything if you're trying to build inventory? Because you will be surprised. And you know what answer you'll get, Don? For everything? And you're like,
yeah, I've heard that a billion times.
You're trying to sell the stuff. Yeah, I'm going to make it easy for you. I'll buy it all.
But again, like you're saying, it depends what they're buying. If Philip here, I mean, if you want vintage stuff, garage sale isn't the right place. A thrift store, generally, you're not going to find a bunch of vintage stuff either these days. 10 years ago, it was all over the place. But, I'm just surprised when I see one real good piece at a thrift store around here. So if you want good stuff, that's not the place to go.
No,
Around here, if I want paper, there's at least 3 antique malls that I can go to, including one that's like number 4 or 5 in the state size-wise, and look up those. Don't go to the ones right near your house, I would say, either, because you never know. And like I travel out sometimes within my range. I don't go more than a certain distance from the house, but I'll go out and hit some little small town and just see what's out there. And sometimes, like we were here in town, I'm near Perrysburg, Ohio these days. And we don't go downtown in Perrysburg. It's not a whole lot there, but we decided, me and Marky, I like walking or riding a bike, and we walked by, and sure enough, we found a secondhand consignment store that wasn't even listed online. And I'm like, oh my gosh, and it's a lot of clothing and stuff. But they had china plates and some old photo albums. There was postcards in there, for crying out loud, and just this little dink store. We ran into there's a Habitat for Humanity construction secondhand store around here. I don't know how it all works, but they've been around for years, and people think that's all they have. Well, I go in there, I find books and records and all kinds of stuff. I mean, whatever. If somebody's remodeling a house, they might just take all the stuff, including the supplies, because they got to get it out of the house, and they'll dump it off at Habitat. So I found all kinds of stuff at places like that, and it's not something any other reseller around here would, maybe nowadays, since I'm saying it, but that's the point, that a lot of people don't think about out of the source. I sourced antique collectibles at a shoe store, because the guy has a shoe store all lined up with antiques on shoes, so it's stuff like that, movie collectibles and old theaters. When the drive-in closed down or the movie theater closed down in Meridian, Mississippi, I was like, well, what's in the attic? I contacted the real estate agent who was handling the sale of the movie theater, and the attic had old movies, which I ended up buying, 35 millimeter. I mean, I made hundreds of dollars off of that.
That's Philip just mentioned. One time they had piano rolls. Well, a couple of quick things. I did do an interview with Mr. Buys a lot, and one of my questions to him was, because he moved down from Allentown, Pennsylvania area, which is prime picking area, much as upstate New York is prime picking. He moved down to just outside of Myrtle Beach. Whole different world. And so I did ask him, and you'll find out when you watch the video, what he said on reestablishing yourself, which you're not necessarily reestablishing yourself, Philip, but you're trying to establish yourself. You're trying to learn new ways and new ways of sourcing for where you're at. And he gave some tips on how to do it when you move to a new area. And the other thing is, when I did go to Myrtle Beach, there was a flea market there, an indoor flea market, that, you had the guy selling the sunglasses. You had the guy selling the Myrtle Beach shot glasses. You had the guy selling all the cell phone accessories, et cetera, et cetera. But in the back of it, it would look like it was an old Woolworths or W.W. Grant, one of those kind of setups. In the back of it, there was a consignment shop. And I went through there, and there actually was some old paper. There was some old stuff in there. Prices were a little higher than I would want to pay. There were some things I could have bought. The other thing, too, is we only had carry-ons. So I wasn't going to buy a lot of stuff because I didn't have luggage. So it would have had to have been a great, great deal for me to buy something. But if I were in the Myrtle Beach area, I would go to it a couple of times. And I don't know the dealer numbers, but dealer 62 is good. Dealer 74 is good. And you try to be there when they're restocking, or you try to be there, kind of try to get their name out of the consignment shop if you can. Reach out to them, because they have the stuff. And yeah, they're asking $5 on it. But I guarantee if you say, how much for this whole pile, it's not $5 each. And I guarantee you, if they're stocking it with that stuff, they have more of that stuff elsewhere. So don't be afraid to do that kind of stuff as well. Try to get the leads and just try to work that way into it would be my advice.
Yeah, we do the same thing. The only thing I would say is, don't try to get them to sell it to you outside of the mall if you met them through the mall, because it might either tick off that person or the mall who runs that they're in. We've had that happen a couple of times and stuff. So, but yeah, it's the same basic principle. Look at the newspaper, even Craigslist, not so much Craigslist, but Facebook Marketplace, I think, is taking over for Craigslist and places like that. Look at what's around. And again, I've sourced at a junkyard before, and it was a Dr. Pepper, like 1960s. It was a light up glass, like a paper glass. It looked like it wasn't really paper, and it had foam at the top of the straw. It was a light up display sign that was sitting in a junkyard. I mean, in the office there. I ended up getting that. So I mean, you never know. I source at the mall. I RA at the mall sometimes because there's a couple of stores that many times blow out stuff on clearance. I mean, it doesn't have to be collectibles. RA stuff works just fine. You know, there's certain times of the year where I've loaded up my car, I don't know how many times, and was able to get rid of the merchandise within a day or two, all of it. Just this past week, we got rid of a lot of merchandise. Like, I don't know what it was, a couple grand worth of merchandise that was brand new, NOS, bought at clearance, almost 85% off or 75, 85% off, something like that, across the board. And again, I'm shopping. I wasn't literally there to do that, but that's what happened.
Yep.
You know, I again, like you said, I always check the clearance aisles, and half the time that's what happens. If I go to a drugstore or something, you'd be surprised at the fact that some of the older small town drugstores have toys that are 10 years old on the toy racks in the back of the drugstore still. And many times I've seen older stuff. You know, I still remember me and my wife, this was in like 96, 97. We found a Return of the Jedi Yoda, the little puppet in the box, at Toys R Us. And you're talking 20 years later. It was still in the box. It was all dusty and kind of, you know, beat up a little bit, but it's been sitting in that store since 83, 84. I'm telling you. I mean, and that's the kind of stuff occasionally. If you go to like that's why I say the old-timey mom and pa pharmacies sometimes, because they sell little gadgets and toys and stuff. And, you know, we've done good on stuff like that even. That's outside the box, though. You know, that's what you got to look for. Look for business.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say businesses and stuff that have closed down and been locked up for years. Find out who owns the building. Look, we've bought from buildings that used to be like secondhand stores like 15, 20 years ago. The door hasn't been open in that long. So, you know, we looked into the real estate company that was in possession of it or the family member that still owned it that, you know, you want to get rid of some of that stuff. It's been there 15, 20 years. It looks like your building's leaking. Hey, you know, maybe we can work something out. It doesn't have to be a store. It doesn't have to be anything like that. You know, I hate to say it, but sometimes obituaries are okay, too, to look in to see, you know, what might be available or coming up for, you know, auctions. And you can find out who is in possession because it usually goes to some agent or something. You know, I do better business, you know, on the phone or emails or something, you know, and text than, you know, going out on the street these days. That's why I don't source like traditionally because I figured out the back way to get the cheap junk because nobody else wanted to deal with it. And then, you know, that's where it's advanced, I guess.
And I think the other thing, Philip, and I've said this any number of times, like flea markets, I do very, very well at, and even estate sales, I do well at. Hand out your business card like you're handing out Halloween candy. Absolutely do it. Anybody, some old lady walking by, hand her your business card. Just be handing it out like that because you absolutely never know. And as long as you're like, hey, I buy, and Don will definitely tell you this as well. When you do get a good source, you do get somebody who's a picker for you, buy from them.
Every time.
Or
give them some cash.
Yep.
Give them money for their time if you don't get anything. I would never let them leave empty-handed because they spent the time to call me before somebody else.
Yep.
You know, if I don't get it, they're just going to find somebody else who'll give them money for it right away. Usually what they want is at least get their money back from the entire purchase or whatever they got. You know, if I can do that, great. You know, and they know what I like these days. So, you know, it's pretty easy.
And it's not, I have had situations before where I have gotten leads from another dealer and gone there. And because I'm easygoing, because I buy it all, because I don't sit there and nickel and dime them, when their next door neighbor has stuff to sell, I get the call. And that's absolutely what it comes down to. Be out there. And one last thing about it, always be professional.
Respectful, because it's their personal belongings.
Well, respectful and professional. Yes, you're absolutely right on the respectful. And another tip over there is when they are selling personal items, if you find something in their photo album, hey, there's a photo album here. You may want to keep this. 8 times out of 10, they'll say no. Take it. We don't care, but bring it to them. These are your uncle's yearbooks. Do you want these? No. Okay. But they at least appreciate the fact that you brought it to them. You know, this is the family Bible. Do you want to keep this? No. Okay. That stuff's all online. I can find it online. Okay. But at least then they know, hey, this guy's bringing all the stuff to me. He's asking me. So that's the respectful part of it. But the other side of it too is my day-to-day life. I usually wear a resort casual, which we learned a little earlier in the show. How many people drive up with the rusty truck with, swearing when they pull up, and they got the ripped jeans, and they've got, and then I come in because of my 33 and a half years working for the state with a professional demeanor. It's night and day, and they might be expecting, they might have dealt with somebody else that is a little rougher around the edges. You can stand out by not being that way, by
not
being
taking
respectful
advantage
and
of
professional. Right. Obviously. And that kind of ties back into two. Why do they want the stuff gone? If they just want it gone and all of it gone, I look through just enough to know that I'm getting a deal, and then I'm buying it all, because I don't want to know what's in there till I get home.
Yeah, I'd rather get home and look through it and be done with it. Yeah.
Yep.
Find enough money there, and I'm only look through 5% of whatever I'm going to buy, and I've already found my money. I'll just take it.
Yep.
Because what the heck? I mean, if I've already found enough in just a few minutes of looking, I've looked through 5, 10,000 45s before. And once in a blue moon, I'll look through the very first stack and find all my money in the very first stack, and I'll stop looking. Not usually. That's like a rarity, but
Right. Absolutely. And that comes into it as well. You need to make sure, especially at flea markets and estate sales. Don was talking about how people buy stuff out from under you. You find something or other, if it's really good, it doesn't leave your hands, and you put something better or something worse on top of it. So you've got a yearbook sitting on top of a really good item because you don't want it up on top, because somebody might walk by and say, that's $20. Hey, I'd give you $50 for it. You don't want anybody else coming in there. People do that kind of stuff. So you just keep that, and that never leaves your hands. And you just get in and I've done it before where I've actually bought stuff, got it to the car, and then went back in to look again.
Because I do that too. I don't like Springfield or something. I don't know how many trips I've taken in the past back to the car, or if like records or something. If I get a stack of them and I've done that, I'll probably walk them out, because I'm sure as heck don't want to leave them up at like an estate sale, the table or the desk up there, because sometimes somebody wasn't paying attention. They'll sell it to somebody else. I've seen it before. It's happened to me with some slot cars maybe a couple months ago too. I picked up some slot cars and they were gone. I was kind of bothered because it was a lot of good slot cars, and they're stuff I don't see, T-Jets and stuff.
Yep, absolutely, 100%. So that is another tip for you. If you find gold, buy it, bring it to the car, come back. The exercise is good for you. Keep it in your head. The exercise is good for you. And one last tip on estate sales: do not go to that estate sale on December 15th when it's 4 degrees outside and you've had 3 feet of snow, thinking you're going to be the only person to show up. That will be the busiest estate sale that you have ever seen, because every one of us thinks nobody else is dumb enough to go out in this weather. I'm going to get all the treasures. We all think the same thing, and we're all there. I have gone to estate sales in brutal weather and said, are these people dumb? Why are they here? And then I kind of look and realize that I'm there too.
Marky used to do tickets at one point at Disney, and people were always puzzled why it's raining. I thought the place was going to be empty, and there's these huge lines, and they're standing out in the rain, and they're all mad. I'm like, it doesn't matter if it's raining or not. It means nothing.
All right, we're going to let Don go. We've kept him on far too long. Definitely do appreciate him coming on. It's been a long time. Good talking with you again. Everybody do like and subscribe to The Auction Professor. And you know where you can find me over on YouTube and the like. Well, I'm here. You can find me over on Whatnot, wherever else. And eventually I'll be over on TikTok too, making the big bucks doing a Gen Z dance or something. Who knows what I might do there. Do hit the like button, and we'll see you next video.